Part 43. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 423. Why have subscriptions dropped? Please subscribe. Well, they have done a good job. After all, they were able to fight like this at first, which is beyond my expectation. If they continue to fight, this team, which has no military spirit in the first place, will be defeated. It's time for me to take action, Big Mosquito thought. While the two sides were fighting, Jia Yan already roughly knew the location of most of the powerful artillery fire of the Solon convoy, and it seemed that the power of the artillery fire had not yet reached a level that could truly threaten him, and after knowing their location, at this time, he felt more confident. Boom 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 boom. The battle below, when the light tanks in Thorin's convoy took action, instantly became corrupted. Those life forms that impacted near Thorin's convoy were instantly hit by the light tanks that jumped out and collapsed. A series of attacks were sprayed out towards the single soldiers and the chariots of the combined convoy following them. Monsters died one after another under these attacks, and some were injured. Some of them used their own weapons without fear of death and confronted those light tanks, but their numbers could not be compared with the opponents, and they were still at a huge disadvantage. "No way, run away," a life form from the Earth's convoy finally uttered, the thought echoing in everyone's heart at this moment. That is, it is impossible for them to win. Even the invisible assassin flying in the sky refuses to show his face. If they continue to fight, they will just die in vain. Suddenly, there was a little commotion on the battlefield. Those who were originally determined to win were shaken. Some of the life forms that had no intention of fighting in the first place turned around and tried to escape. But every one of these monsters showed signs of collapse. Thorin's fleet of sentient beings. Also with a disdainful smile. Boom boom boom. A roar that could shake the heaven and the earth resounded. Hearing this voice, the voice had just sounded, but it was a terrifying figure. Already riding a hurricane, soaring down. Bang. His first move. First, he crashed his body, which was carrying speed above the speed of sound, into a gun truck. There seemed to be a sound of thunder and roaring between heaven and earth. The huge and sturdy chariot was actually knocked away by the huge figure at this moment. Boom 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 boom. Behind the gun carriage. It was a phalanx of artillery vehicles of the same type. At this time, this artillery vehicle was severely knocked away. It actually looked like a real artillery shell. It first hit the body of a nearby gun body, knocking the latter into the air. Then the two gun carriages flew together. Crash into the bodies of more artillery vehicles and tanks behind them. For a time, there was collision and destruction between heaven and earth. And the sound of the tank's power explosion. That huge monster was naturally the Big Mosquito, and he hit it instantly. After bringing incredible results. He didn't stop at all, he just started attacking the light tanks around him. These tanks are powerful resistance in frontal battles, and they are also the first line of defense for Solon's fleet. There are still other lines of defense after that, so the Big Mosquito only plans to use a few seconds to deal with them. The first second of impact caused extremely horrific results. In the second, Jia Yan had already spread his wings, and pushed by the air mixed with the power of brain waves, his speed instantly exceeded 10 times the speed of sound. Woo woo woo. With the sound of whimpering wind filling his ears, Jia Yan felt that the time he was in was once again different from the people around him. This is a natural reaction after becoming strong. A long time ago, Jia Yan had this feeling of time slowing down. If it weren't for this experience of slowing down, he wouldn't be able to fight the enemy at a speed that easily exceeds the speed of sound. Thanks to this feeling of slowing down, he can now barely attack enemies on the ground at low altitude at more than 10 times the speed of sound. Second. Phew. 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 His front feet were stabbed on the bodies of each light tank. In 1 second, Jia Yan had no time to count how many light tanks he had defeated. He could only feel the speed of each enemy in his own feelings. Too slow, too slow, too slow. As he soared, everything around him became still. The light ejected from the muzzle seemed to be slowly floating ribbons. Although it was still several times faster than other speeds, but in this situation with a clear feeling, he can easily control his position and avoid any light attacks. The third second, the fourth second. Boom 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 boom. Behind them, there are chariots that were completely destroyed by a slight stab from the front foot. Whether it's artillery vehicles, light tanks, or large and medium-sized tanks that are rushing to the rescue from Huangzhou. As long as they were combat units in Salin's convoy, they were all destroyed by Jia Yan with all his strength. A few seconds passed, and no living thing like him could see the shadow clearly. He could only see the figure swept by a black hurricane, which finally caused a huge shock to the two warring parties. Don't run away. The assassin is here, fight back, fight back. Alouz, who was originally driving a chariot and wanted to escape with the large army, was the first to react. In the battle channel, the frog's eyes widened and he screamed crazily. Master Assassin is here. It turns out that the assassin is so powerful. Looking at the huge thing that was so fast that it just turned into a black hurricane, all the life forms in the Earth's convoy here finally came to the end of their hardships. They were all happy and roared crazily. Powerful. This is the assassin they serve. A group of soldiers from the Earth's convoy who wanted to retreat, turned back to the front of the car one by one, and were attacked from behind by the assassin, who destroyed most of the enemy convoy in an instant. Compared to the people in the Earth convoy, Salin's convoy fell into a huge panic for an instant. What kind of monster is this? How is it possible? How is it possible that the Alouz racing team and the Lokafo racing team can find such a backer? The semi-mechanical monster Thorin looked at the scenery in front of him. A dumbfounded expression. At this time, the big frog had an even bigger reaction. It's impossible. He's a flying monster. Even, that adult can't have this speed. This. In addition to them, the other soldiers of Thorin's convoy. Each and every one of them became extremely frightened. The combat power of this monster completely exceeded their imagination, and they were unable to target this extremely fast life form. In even 1 second, the opponent can wreak havoc on the battlefield. With such speed and extremely powerful attack power, their expressions changed drastically. Maybe after a while, this will be the one escaping. A powerful life form. Even in the battle against these alien life forms with extremely strong technological capabilities, they are extremely terrifying. This shows how powerful Jia Yan is. It is also common among alien civilizations. Boom boom boom. Just 10 seconds after Jia Yan launched his attack, the wind direction in this battlefield where the two sides were fighting suddenly changed. In 10 seconds, Jia Yan destroyed most of the tanks. Even the artillery trucks became a useless product. If Jia Yan hadn't thought that if he conquered this place in the future, he would need certain weapons. Maybe in these 10 seconds, he might have conquered all the enemy vehicles on the entire battlefield. But when 10 seconds were up, his compound eyes suddenly discovered that some hidden artillery fire that he had observed before appeared in the Huangzhou. I don't know how strong these artillery fires are, but their caliber is definitely not small. Compared with these tanks from the outside world, Jia Yan is afraid of them. At this time, the big Mosquito's body suddenly moved. Let go of the panicked and defeated tanks of Thorin's team and plunged directly into Huangzhou. At this time, there is a command vehicle inside Huangzhou. This command vehicle is huge and has been fixed on the ground, making it impossible to move for a moment. In the command vehicle, there is a life form that looks like a frog man, but its eyes have turned into metal eyes. This life form has a string of data flowing through its eyes. There is a solemn look on his face that others cannot see. Mosquito's actions, but with his data-flowing eyes, he seems to be able to detect the Mosquito's actions through endless data. Just as Jia Yan plunged into the Huangzhou forest, those chariots had no chance of blocking him. This frog monster with metal eyes slams a button. Boom boom. Some huge cannons hidden on the outskirts of the forest launched their own attacks at this time. And their attack speed is extremely fast. Compared with the firepower of those tanks, it is much more ferocious. Moreover, in order to pursue attack power, these artillery fires are all one-time use, releasing all the power in one breath. This is the last and most powerful weapon of Salin's fleet in this yellow continent. The big mosquito body had already observed the movements of those muzzles. Jia Yan secretly praised him in his heart. The guy who controlled the firepower definitely had excellent dynamic vision. Even his speed could keep up. What a talent! It's a pity that not everything can really keep up with his speed. Boom! His body was originally capable of 10 times the speed of sound, but after Jia Yan's brainwave power suddenly increased again. In an instant, it increased to 12 times the speed of sound. What? The metal-eyed frog over there screamed in horror. All his judgments were based on the opponent's speed being 10 times the speed of sound, but at this moment the opponent's speed suddenly increased, and now he could no longer catch the big mosquito. Hurry up and model again, I can do it. The frog monster stared at the data on the screen, as if he suddenly felt a kind of pain, and his hand speed actually made a breakthrough under what kind of explosion. At twice the speed of sound, click the button on the operation screen quickly. But these actions are already too late. Boom boom boom. Just when he thought that the place he was in was very hidden, the monster falling from the sky, no matter how fast it was, would never be able to easily find his right moment. A roar rising into the sky suddenly echoed in the body of the car he was in. The metal-eyed frog monster spurted out a mouthful of blood at this moment, and its body also suffered from a huge attack. And there was a strong vibration. Even most of the equipment was damaged. A sharp and inexplicably lustrous creature's forefoot, like a blade that suddenly stabbed out, pierced the body of the car from the outside world. The forefoot is knife-shaped and horny. Wrapped in a faint membrane of brainwave power, this membrane power. It can greatly increase the sharpness and damage possibility of forefoot attacks. Jia Yan looked at the car body that he had pierced, and smiled faintly in his heart. He didn't stay in the sky for so long just to see the casualties in his convoy. But before, he calmly observed the forest. Those artillery fire and combat units were mobilized just in case because there was a big enemy. This huge artillery fire control vehicle. He had already lost his invisibility function during his observation. Ah! The length and width of this car are tens of meters high. There were an unknown number of life forms inside. When Jia Yan pierced the place with one blow, countless screams of terror immediately appeared inside. This is not a pre-war charge vehicle. Although it is huge, its defense is not as good as that of an ordinary chariot. Under the thrust of the big mosquito's forefoot, it is as good as tofu, with no blocking ability at all. The length of one of Jia Yan's front feet reaches about 30 meters. Such a thrust directly penetrates the front foot completely into the body of the car. It is equivalent to penetrating the entire car body. At this moment, the moving muzzles actually stopped moving, as if their control had been directly destroyed. Even two of the artillery fires with a diameter of about 3 meters, which were the most frightening thing for Jia Yan, also stopped running at this time. Jia Yan finally breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. In this way, the victory of this battle is basically established. Jia Yan pulled out his front foot that was pierced into the huge car body. Worried that the opponent would have any emergency control, he raised his front foot again at this time, intending to completely destroy this huge tank that served as the center. Something dozens of meters long and wide is no longer an incredible opponent for him. In the past on Earth, he had destroyed several huge buildings that were hundreds of meters tall, and even those 1,000-meter-long metal monster buildings, if he had the heart to do so, he could destroy them. So he doesn't have any feelings about destroying such a thing, and feels that he can't help the other person. Gudu. At this moment, a faint sound of foam sounded faintly in Jia Yan's ears. Deep in his heart, a sense of crisis suddenly appeared. Among the tens of meters of central chariot that looks like a huge monster, there is one that occupies almost half of the empty space of the vehicle body. In this space, there is a tank that covers an area of tens of meters. In the water tank, the light green liquid is constantly foaming. The appearance of this foam seems to be decomposed directly after it comes into the air, and then makes a gurgling sound, making the place extremely quiet and feeling. Infiltrate people. But what's even scarier is below. There was actually a terrifying giant beast in the water tank. This is a huge monster with a human-like body, but its surface is covered with scales. This monster has eyes on the front and back of its head, but its eyes are closed at this time, as if it has fallen into a deep sleep. However, the huge vibration of the car body caused the place to shake, and the green liquid continued to ripple, making the monster with its eyes closed frown. His body is similar to that of Earthlings in many places, except that he is 20 meters tall, like the giant from myths and legends, standing in the water tank holding the sky. Just when Jia Yan from outside wanted to continue attacking this place, this giant suddenly opened his eyes. Gurgling. In the battlefield where the Earth Army and Thorin's convoy were fighting near Huangzhou, the situation was completely reversed. Those brave Thorin convoys now seemed to have turned into defeated wild dogs, almost all of them were injured. Everyone in the Earth Army's convoys cheered and continued to attack the lone units among them. Ha ha ha. The assassin is too powerful. Once he takes action, the Thorin convoy that we were originally unable to defeat has become so vulnerable. If the assassin has the strength of the top 10 strong men, I believe it. There were other soldiers on the car body that Alus was riding on. At this time, those soldiers put their weapons out of the car body one by one, and kept sniping at those cables who had lost their cars due to Jia Yan's attack on the car body but barely survived. Lin's convoy is a single soldier. When Alus listened to the cheerful discussions of his subordinates, he smiled a little and his frog eyes widened with excitement. That's natural. I think Lord Assassin's strength must be at the level of the top 10 strong men. He may even be 9th or even 8th. Boss, no, Commander. Have you seen the top 10 strong men before? Our assassin, who is stronger and weaker than them, a soldier became interested, took back his gun, and looked at Ulu X asked. The top 10 strong men are indeed very strong. I have seen the 5th most powerful man, Mr. Long Liu, from a distance once before. That master's strength. Maybe something happened at that time, which reminded Dialux of the situation at that time, and his expression suddenly changed. Maybe that lord is a little stronger than our assassin lord. After saying these words, he was a little discouraged. After all, he had just recognized that his leader was extremely powerful, and now he immediately overthrew him. But he didn't want his subordinates to be overconfident. If he really provoked the top 5 experts in the future, it would be a big trouble. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 424. It seems that the meaning of Alus's words can be heard. Maybe the 5th strongest person, Lord Long Liu, is far more than the assassin. The soldier couldn't help but swallow. It turns out that there is someone more powerful than Lord Assassin in this desert. Commander, what does Lord Long Liu look like? If we accidentally encounter him in the future, we will run as far as we can. Alus continued to be silent for a while, then slowly said. That gentleman looks like an Asta man, but his body is 100 times larger than that of an Asta man, and he has 4 eyes on the front and back. Click, 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 click. There was a kind of crack in Huangzhou's huge vehicle. This was a crack that appeared on the waterweed due to the previous thrust of the powerful forefoot. Finally, as if because of the harassment of this sound, the giant monster living in the water tank completely opened its front and rear eyes. Brilliant. Princess Sleeping Beauty, are you finally awake? Hee hee. The big mosquito outside the car also looked dignified, with a hint of fighting spirit. In the short period of fighting before, he was extremely concentrated, but he didn't notice that there was a powerful existence in this place that used the power of brain waves to wrap his body. Instead, he attacked the car body, and only after the other party showed some clues of its brainwave power did he discover the other party's existence. After the giant opened his eyes, he looked directly at the direction of Jia Yan with his own eyes. The two seemed to be able to see each other's faces through the thin car body. Right away, they seemed to recognize that the other party was a rival. Wow! The giant stood up and levitated from the green pool with a depth of more than 20 meters. He picked up a huge piece of metal placed on the ground, and then roared. Roar! The sound could shake the heaven and the earth. His muscles tensed up, he grabbed the metal object, and struck out hard towards the direction of Jia Yan's car body. Bang! Jia Yan used his front foot to attack. Take it back lightly. Then he looked at the location of the car body in front of him. Bang! After 2 hits, a gap made by a metal weapon appeared in front of the car body. Immediately, a huge foot stepped out from inside. The foot's roots were thick and its nails were as huge as a human head on earth. And it's sharp, hard, and predictable. How painful would it be to be scratched hard by this nail? After that, there is the body of this monster. He grasped the edge of the gap with one hand and exerted slight pressure. The car body deformed, and finally there was enough space to accommodate its appearance. Soon, the muscles became tangled. A chest with protruding veins, and a torso that seemed to be covered in scales. The figure is revealed. Jia Yan looked at this monster, which was about the same size as himself. The opponent also stepped out of the car indifferently, then suspended in the air, looking at his opponent. This monster has 2 pairs of eyes on its face. One after another, it is obvious that in a high-speed battle, these 2 pairs of eyes can give it a 360-degree defensive perspective with no blind spots. He holds a thick metal weapon in one hand. This weapon does not seem to have much magic on the surface. It looks like a scimitar, folded into a 7. It is somewhat similar to the boomerang on Earth. Jia Yan was a little surprised that the monster's body shape was so similar to that of a human being. When he was sizing up the other party was also sizing up him. The appearance of the giant mosquito that he had never seen before made the giant full of astonishment. As a monster that has been rampant for a long time, this monster rarely sees monsters that it does not know, even if it does not know the other party's species. But at least in terms of race, we can still see some clues. But the monster in front of him showed no trace of the monster species he had seen before. What exactly is it? The giant had a humanized frown. Of course, the two sides looked at each other for just a moment. You are so arrogant. I dare to attack even in this place. The giant looked at the surrounding scenery and noticed the retreat of Thorin's convoy through the distant sounds of war, so he said calmly. He didn't use the power of his brain waves to make the sound, but used his mouth to make a deep, huge sound that made people feel chest shaking. Your Excellency is surprised. You are hiding here quietly. Who knew you were here? Jia Yan was startled at first, and then released it with an arrogant voice through the power of brainwaves. Besides, even if I knew you were here, why wouldn't I dare to attack? There was a faint light in his compound eyes. The huge giant over there didn't seem to think that Jia Yan would dare to say such a thing, and anger appeared on his face. That's right, you're a stranger, so you probably don't recognize me anymore. Very good, I'll let you see why I said that. His face was extremely angry. Of course, he still had a certain regard for the big mosquito and picked up his weapon. Jia Yan also felt a deep sense of solemnity in his heart. The opponent's strength is definitely not that simple. Just seeing that he was able to conceal his detection before, and was not detected until he was about to wake up. This is not an easy opponent. But is Jia Yan afraid? Don't be afraid. What he is worried about is that he has no opponents. The more opponents who can let go and fight, the better. The giant is still suspended in the sky. Just looking at this hand, you can tell that his brainwave power is definitely at an incredible level. Obviously what the other party said before, not knowing his existence, was an unforgivable sin. It was indeed not unreasonable. The other party was definitely a well-known existence here. The opponent began to raise his huge metal weapon, which was like a boomerang and took up almost half the height of the opponent. At the level of a strong man like Jia Yan, ordinary metal has long been ineffective, and may even destroy most of the metal with one blow. But Jia Yan didn't think that the boomerang in the giant's hand was that vulnerable. Boom! Just after he became a little more solemn, the monster giant swung his metal boomerang, accelerated in an instant, and directly swung the boomerang with great momentum, and smashed it towards Jia Yan's direction. Sure enough, a look of horror appeared in Jia Yanfu's eyes. I saw that this earth-shattering blow had a speed that was at least 10 times faster than the speed of sound on the earth. Just thinking about it changes the air around you. There were huge waves and faint shock waves, spreading in all directions, blowing the huge car body as if it was about to fly. At the same time, I saw the strong muscles of this giant's body bulging one by one. Just like an Iron Man. Faced with such a critical blow, Jia Yan did not retreat. It was terrifying, but only for a moment. There was a touch of surprise in his heart. In this place, I didn't expect it. To be able to meet an existence that can make me use all my strength. Now, I can verify that after I came out of the earth. How much stronger has it become? Well done. Jia Yan didn't retreat at all, and stretched out his right front foot. It collided hard with the opponent's metal boomerang. Boom! A brave strike from both sides caused the attack to collide. There was an effect like thunder on the ground, and huge lightning and flames appeared in the air. This was because the air could not bear the terrifying attack of the double hair, and it became burning and sparks. The shock wave caused by the air explosion directly caused the huge command vehicles around to be thrown away. The huge air wave made the living beings in it completely unable to grasp anything. Then it was set off, and in flying in the air. Fortunately, there was no large-scale spillage in the turquoise pool, and the liquid only splashed out a little. Jia Yan didn't know the existence of this thing. He was just a little surprised at the opponent's strength, and then his fighting spirit became even more intense. Only the giant monster had a look of astonishment on his face after seeing that Jia Yan and his own blows were evenly matched. Then he looked at the damage to the command vehicle, and there was a trace of reluctance on his face. He immediately turned his attack around and flew at low altitude toward an area far away from this Huangzhou. Where to go? Jia Yan finally met a being who could hone himself in fighting and verify how much stronger he had become recently. How could he let him go at this time? He didn't know that the other party was not escaping, but was feeling sorry for the green liquid. You must know that this giant was trained in Thorin's convoy because of these liquids. If the pool of green liquid was damaged by their battle, that's a bit of a pity. So he temporarily showed weakness to the enemy and flew away. Jia Yan acted like a fighting maniac and followed closely. To put it bluntly, he was venting his previous depression. He came to this unknown planet inexplicably from the Earth world. Later, due to the lack of energy, he was unable to exert his full fighting power. He even served as a so-called war pet for a long time. Using his body to entertain the life forms on this planet, this kind of thing makes Jia Yan feel a contrast with the Earth world. Especially when facing that white life form, because he was unable to activate all his fighting power, he clearly knew that his ability to control brainwave power had been greatly developed. If he used his full strength, he would most likely end up in a draw with the opponent, or even he defeated him, but he still could only run away in disgrace. This kind of thing made Jia Yan very depressed recently. And it just so happened that when he met someone like him who seemed to be able to fight to a tie with himself who lacked enough energy, why didn't his fighting spirit boil over? To put it bluntly, it is a kind of venting. The chase begins. Since that huge giant is not a flying life form, it is impossible to compare with Jia Yan in terms of flying. The other party was also shocked. He had just escaped from Huangzhou, and even because his speed reached about 7 times the speed of sound on Earth, the two sides fighting below did not have time to see his body. But what he didn't expect was that the unseen flying monster chasing behind him actually had a speed far exceeding his. Just about a kilometer away from Huangzhou, that is, within a few seconds, the dark flying monster, with fierce fighting intent in its compound eyes, chased after him. At the same time, the knife-shaped horn on the front foot that announced death was already aimed at the back of the giant monster. How is that possible? The giant's face changed drastically, and he was caught off guard, and he quickly raised his boomerang-like weapon. When the front legs of a giant mosquito, and the boomerang weapon of a giant monster make a huge crashing sound. Giant monsters with their own weapons. He narrowly withstood a strike from the giant mosquito's front legs. Because of the force of the collision, he moved forward faster. Jia Yan's flying speed was slightly delayed for a few tenths of a second due to the counter-attack from the opponent's power. He actually made the other party escape for about a kilometer. So strong. Feeling the reaction force from his front foot, Jia Yan was also a little surprised. This monster can be said to be the strongest life form he has ever seen, except for the white monster. But I will definitely win. Just fight with me. With a gleaming light in his compound eyes, he pursued him again. You're still here. You really thought I was afraid of you? The giant monster running in front looked even more angry as he flew down towards the ground. At the same time, the weapon in his hand was grasped tighter, revealing this giant monster. I also have the will to fight. After all, he didn't think he was weaker than the big mosquito. After all, flying is not his specialty. If he falls to the ground, his combat effectiveness will be greatly improved. Bang! It's like a cannonball. Hit the ground hard. In the yellow sand that filled the sky, a huge giant figure appeared. The sand was sunken, and its legs rubbed the ground, bringing up countless flying sand and rocks, as if falling meteorites, which was extremely terrifying. But there wasn't much time for people to appreciate the scenery at this time. The giant fell to the ground without any wounds at all. He just lifted the boomerang-like weapon and struck back with a backhand. A huge creature seemed to teleport from behind. At the moment when his weapon counterattacked, Kankan came behind its body and attacked the boomerang with its front feet. This place far away from the battlefield of the convoy, suddenly there was a huge battle wave. At this time, in just 10 or 20 seconds of pursuit, they were actually tens of kilometers away from Huangzhou, where the convoys were fighting. The people over there were not aware of the fluctuations in the battle at this time. And in the battlefield over there, it was also because of Jia Yan's battle that the Earth convoy there had a huge advantage. Most of the tanks of Thorin's fleet have been destroyed, and the ones that can move are also of less advanced models. Therefore, the Earth's fleet has already destroyed those tanks. Today's war is all about fighting against those powerful Thorins. Lin's team is a one-man team, engaging in firefights. Thorin's convoy is indeed a powerful convoy. Even if most of the tanks are lost, there are still very powerful warriors who use their powerful single combat power to fight against the tanks of the Earth convoy. What's going on? Salin's convoy has already been defeated. We even have the assassin who is hiding now. With such a big gap, They haven't been defeated yet. Could it be that the soldiers in this convoy are so loyal? Allos looked at the fighting around him and was very surprised that the soldiers in Thorin's convoy were all carrying their own weapons. Even if they exchanged fire with their bodies, most of them had no intention of retreating. It seemed like they had great confidence in their expressions. What Olux didn't know was that everyone in Salin's convoy knew that there were not only some artillery fire and hidden explosive devices in the Huangzhou of his convoy, but also one that their convoy had spent a lot of money on. Please come here to take a break, a powerful presence. Apart from anything else, as long as this being is willing to take action, the little Earth team in front of them, and even the flying monster before them, are definitely no match for that being. If you want to ask why, it is that existence. In this desert, it is definitely famous. His strength is gained through battle after battle. His name is Long Wu, and he is the fifth strongest man in this desert. As a strong person of that kind, he can easily destroy a large force by himself. Facing a small force like them, it would be a complete crushing. If Master Long Wu takes action, the convoy in front of him will have absolutely no chance of survival. Therefore, none of the combat life forms in Thorin's convoy had the slightest intention of retreating. Even if the comrades around them were still unable to fight against the chariot because of their physical bodies, and one of them died, they still fought to the death. Come on. Master Long Wu is still in the command vehicle. If you wake up, you will definitely let these guys taste death. A soldier who spoke was suddenly hit by the gunfire of an Earth Army tank. With a bang. Captain. Some of the soldiers around him gritted their teeth when they saw this scene, but under their angry expressions, there was finally some fear. The casualties are too great. Lord Long Wu, we spent so much energy repair fluid in exchange for you protecting us for 3 years. If you don't take action, our entire army will be wiped out. The semi-mechanical monster known as Thorin and watched his comrades around him die one by one. He couldn't help but look nervously at the inside of Huangzhou, wishing to ask the giant to wake up quickly and kill all the enemies. But what they didn't know was that the Lord Long Wu they had been waiting for had actually awakened. Even when they were focusing on fighting before, they quickly left the area with the flying monster before. And in this battle against a strange and powerful person, the situation was not as easy as they imagined for Master Long Wu to easily defeat his opponent. Boom 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 boom. A knife-shaped horn on the front foot stabbed hard on the shoulder of the huge giant. Phew. The blood is surging. This is a bright red liquid similar to that of people on Earth. It is bright in color and looks extremely delicious. Under the horrified gaze of the giant monster, the big mosquito's slender mouthparts used a little force, and with a slight squeak sound, it actually pierced the giant monster's chest with its sharp needle. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 425. For a moment, the monster known as Long Wu felt the blood in his body being violently drawn out by something with strong suction. In just a few tenths of a second, a lot of blood was drained from the body. Fortunately, he had rough skin and thick flesh, and even though his chest was stabbed, his internal organs were not damaged. Just the instantaneous decrease in blood made this monster weak and angry. Die. He quickly panicked and used his metal weapon to hit the middle of the head of the flying monster in front of him. Phew. Just when the boomerang kanken was about to hit his opponent, the big mosquito flapped its wings, pulled out its mouth needle from the opponent's chest, and quickly left the place. Jia Yan soared into the sky, and an even colder look appeared in his compound eyes filled with ice. But in this coldness, there is still a hint of surprise. Their previous battles were both offensive and defensive. They attacked each other and the winner could not be determined quickly. But after some time passed, he discovered that this giant monster did not have much physical energy. Jia Yan just used his own limited physical strength to continue fighting, and this battle did not consume much energy. The other party was in perfect condition before, but in such a short period of time, he was out of breath and on the verge of collapse. The white life form before was extremely powerful in combat. I didn't notice this. However, this powerful giant monster has such a situation. Does this mean that his strength is not the same as mine? He has similar strength, but the endurance and body recovery ability are far weaker than mine. Jia Yan never thought that his body would be too different from ordinary life forms, especially these alien life forms. To him, each of these life forms were unheard of creatures before. Before this, even if some amazing individuals appear, it may not be a strange thing to him. But after being in contact for so long, he was in contact and battle again and again. Gradually other clues emerged. Those intelligent beings with average life strength are just that, but those battle pets. Although they are known as war pets and their combat prowess far exceeds that of ordinary alien life forms, their physical abilities are limited. And the recovery ability seems to be average. I have never seen any recovery ability beyond ordinary understanding. Even the white life form I saw before. It seems that after fighting for a while, the power has fluctuated to a certain extent, and there seems to be a certain amount of energy loss. And now, the most obvious one is this giant monster who is similar in strength to himself now. The other party's body is actually at this time. There became a great weakening of strength, as if tired. Jia Yan was very surprised. You know, his strength. But there are many more. You monster, the giant monster covered his injured abdomen with a horrified expression. Long Wu was naturally frightened. As the fifth strongest man in this desert, although he knows that his strength may not be compared to the real strong men of the big forces, and he may not be considered a peak strong man, but as a strong man on the surface, he can definitely be said to be one of the strongest men in the world. Enemy level. Before, he took action against a secretly strong man from a big force. There could be many reasons for taking action in this desert. He did it just to snatch the research results of an underground force, but that time he took action. Not only did he not get what he asked for, but he was even seriously injured. That's why when he encountered Thorin's convoy before, he ordered the other party to gather all their belongings to provide him with enough energy repair fluid. But he didn't expect that he, who had just been completely repaired, encountered an inexplicable force that came to attack Sarin's convoy. Although as the fifth strongest man in this desert, he could completely ignore the crisis of Sarin's convoy, but if it could be easily solved, if the other party is in danger, then he doesn't mind helping a little bit. But I didn't expect that the opponent's flying monster would be such a powerful monster. He was kept being suppressed and beaten, and even after his physical strength declined, he was horrified to find that the other party still seemed to be calm and composed. The trace of scars on the exoskeleton of his abdomen that he had finally used his own weapon to hit hard at this time had disappeared without knowing when, and there was no sign of any damage at all. Jia Yan avoided several all-out attacks from the giant, then turned around and looked at his abdomen that had been attacked before. He saw a faint blue color there, which appeared without any trace at all, and then disappeared strangely. Jia Yan knew that this was an attack from the opponent and could not pose much of a threat at all. His azure defense resisted the opponent's attack without fully appearing. If this big giant knew that his attack only aroused the big mosquito on the opposite side, and only used a little bit of defense ability to completely resist his full attack, I don't know what kind of expression he would have. He still thinks that his true strength is almost the same as that of the other party. This unknown monster must have just arrived in this desert. As the first one to hit the gun, he will definitely use my name to climb to the position of a strong man. But he doesn't know at all. I don't want this false reputation at all. If we really want to rank the strongest, in this desert, I might not be able to rank among the top 10. Thinking of this, Long Wu's huge body sluggished a little. Jia Yan, who was misunderstood, took this opportunity to thrust out one front foot again. Phew! A blow hit the opponent's arm where he had no time to react. The giant roared angrily, but it was not a counter-attack by the trapped beast. Instead, it ran towards the rear at a very fast speed with many wounds. "If you want to chase me, I will fight to the death. Don't think I have no backup plan," he yelled at the big mosquito as he backed away crazily. Jia Yan was startled for a moment, then stopped. This giant-like life form was indeed extremely powerful. If he continued to fight, he felt that even if he would win, he would be wasting a lot of time. More importantly, he would lose even more of his already limited energy. Also, this giant's so-called backhand is obviously real. I am sure that any powerful attack can be resisted. But it is not cost-effective. When Jia Yan hesitated, he saw with regret that the giant had already exploded with unknown power in the long yellow sand. Carrying his own boomerang weapon, he ran wildly and disappeared. Forget it. Although the blood of this monster that I can absorb seems to be more than 10 times more powerful than those nutrient solutions, I have to completely defeat the opponent and absorb it. I don't even know if the energy wasted in fighting is enough to absorb, so it's not worth it. Jia Yan helplessly headed in the direction he came from. Fly back slowly. During the battle, the two moved a distance of more than 50 kilometers, and within this distance, every force and convoy under your feet has a way to pass by. Now on his way back, he could clearly see their shadows. It seems that the deserts on this planet have become living areas. There are so many living areas within just a few dozen kilometers. Jia Yan looked at the life forms below and sighed in his heart. After all, this alien planet is very different from the Earth. Not only the appearance of life is very different, but also the understanding of some common sense is different from that of the people on Earth. The desert is a restricted area for life on the Earth. Sometimes the wind and sand blow up and can destroy a caravan in an instant. But on this planet, maybe because of technology, this is not considered a danger at all. Since there are so many living things, there will definitely be no shortage of resources or things available here. The possibility of development is still very high. A gleam appeared in the big mosquito's eyes. He knew that in his previous life, he was somewhat far away from the group due to his inability to communicate with others and some objective factors. Now in this strange life planet, there are even more strange life forms than him, so in this place, he can change his previous appearance and fully integrate into the group. As a leader, he can try out what it feels like to be with the group. But there are indeed many strong people on this planet. It's just a random monster that turns out to be so powerful. I should be more careful in the future. Through the previous four-eyed giant monster, Jia Yan felt that he once again understood a little more about the combat power on this planet. After all, as an outsider, he still didn't know much about this gray-yellow star. Although after so many days of after integrating, he has gradually gained a deeper understanding of this alien planet. However, because he had adopted an indifferent attitude before, now that he thinks about it, he finds that he still has many basic questions. Have never understood it? That's all. After we go back, let's systematically understand this planet and the desert it's located in. Jia Yan seemed to have compromised and sighed lightly in his heart. In fact, he subconsciously resisted this new world before because he was somewhat unwilling to admit that he was already several light years away from the Earth. He is still imagining that if he can have an adventure again, then returning to Earth seems to be a matter of time. However, he had been trapped on this planet for a full month or two in Earth time, and there was still no possibility of returning to Earth. Only then did he gradually come to a helpless compromise, which was to find a way to adapt to this new world. Little did they know that the giant mosquito drove away the giant monster and had a huge impact on the war for his subordinates of the Earth Army. The soldiers of Thorin's convoy are all looking forward to the intervention of the temporarily resident Lord Longwu in their fighting team to turn the tide and reverse the current defeat. But the more they looked forward to it, the less the movement inside Huangzhou happened. Not only was the Lord Longwu they were expecting silent, but even the other trump card of Salin's convoy, the automatic fire that was so well arranged that they were sure they could defend against the sheriff's aircraft, also made no sound. Huangzhou, which was originally full of murderous intent, now seems to be an ordinary forest that has calmed down. Not only does it no longer possess murderous intent, it also seems to be a tourist attraction with infinite scenery, inviting members of the Earth Army to enter and get whatever they want. How is that possible? There was a signal from inside, saying that the command vehicle was destroyed, and Lord Longwu was also there before, fighting the monster and leaving. In the still chaotic battle outside Huangzhou, Thorin, who was half beast and half machine, was holding the emergency communicator he carried with him, listening to the intermittent communication from Huangzhou, with a look of disbelief in his eyes. The flying monster from before. Not only the artillery system they created with their hard work. Completely destroyed, he fought and left with Master Longwu. They didn't notice any objects leaving Huangzhou at all, which showed that they didn't even get a glimpse of the level of fighting between the two sides. Not on the same level at all. Lord Longwu can't deal with the other party, so he even cautiously goes to fight with him somewhere else. Think of this. There was a feeling of disbelief in Thorin's body. This is simply impossible, Lord Longwu, as the fifth strongest person. In his opinion, when encountering an unknown life form, it is normal to simply crush it directly. But the reality is, Lord Longwu and this monster may even be a match. Impossible. Master Longwu will definitely be able to deal with the opponent. After all, he is the fifth most powerful in the desert. Thinking of Longwu's title of fifth strongest because of the battles. Thorin, who is half beast and half machine, has a firm sense of trust. There are not many monsters in the desert that can reach Longwu's level, but if we talk about monsters that have been fighting for a period of time, there are still some in this desert. After all, there are many powerful life forms in this desert. Among them there are some people who can fight with the top 10 strong people regardless of outcome, but due to various reasons, they are not ranked among the top 10 in the end. And the general situation is that even if they can fight with the top 10 strong people, they are defeated in the end. It must be those monsters, because their background is not as deep as the top 10 strong men. That monster was definitely just an existence that could barely fight Lord Longwu for a while. It must be. Thorin held the communicator, feeling furious in his heart. Even though the war had gone so far, he was still controlling his men from being defeated just because he wanted to bet on Lord Longwu's power. But not long after, when this tall monster saw a figure flying slowly in the distant sky, his expression finally changed wildly. Run away. Lord Longwu was actually defeated. No. Facing that kind of existence, the only way to escape is to surrender. The exclamation of the leader of Thorin's fleet echoed through all the communicators of Thorin's fleet. At this time, around the battlefield where the fighting was slowly becoming sparse, Alus, as the temporary commander of the Earth Army, had withdrawn from the battlefield. He was just commanding his men to encircle and suppress the remaining soldiers of Salin's convoy, and there was no need to continue charging at all costs. Lord Longwu, his strength has really reached an incredible level. It is said that he has also mastered brainwave power and can fly into the sky with his body without wings. It is really terrifying. It's so powerful. It seems that our assassin really can't defeat this kind of existence. After hearing what Alus said, the soldiers around him all had more admiration and fear for Lord Longwu, the fifth strongest man in the desert. This does not mean that they no longer admire the Lord Assassin, but it is a different concept, because Jia Yan's feeling in front of them cannot match those legendary strong men. Beep beep beep. Suddenly, a communication request appeared in Alus's advanced communicator. Hey, isn't this the communication identification signal of Salin's team? Pick it up and see what he says. Allos accepted the communication request calmly, but the other party immediately sent some words that he couldn't believe. What? Surrender? Our assassin destroyed your command vehicle and defeated Lord Longyuo. This. Putting down the communicator, the big frog still had an expression of confusion. Then he looked at the sky, where a mysterious flying life form appeared above everyone. The way he covered the sky and the sun seemed to make everyone feel that he had become even bigger. Allos only felt that what happened was extremely absurd. Master Assassin defeated Longyuo, whom he had been bragging to his subordinates before. That Longyuo who is ranked 5th strongest. Apart from being surprised, he could only look at the sky with a dumbfounded expression, thinking in disbelief, "My lord, who are you?" If Jia Yan heard his inquiry, he would definitely tell him with his head held high. "I'm a mosquito." The desert seemed to be in a certain amount of chaos because of the arrival of a powerful being. But correspondingly, are several cities located on the gray-yellow star, and now they have also become chaotic because of a certain existence. City number 5, in this city, has a police headquarters to maintain law and order. In this base camp, there is now chaos due to the defeat of the sheriff's team. The source of the chaos is a flying monster. When a security team was dispatched to destroy the desert convoy, this monster suddenly sneak attacked the security team, causing the destruction of 3 security aircraft. This was a huge loss that city number 5 had never seen before. Now, not only the middle-level police officer of the team will be held accountable, but even his immediate boss will have to plead guilty to the city's administrators. I don't know how many people were sitting there at that time. However, the police officers involved tolerated such losses one by one. If they were allowed to choose again, they would definitely make this choice again. After all, it is better to face some punishment such as salary reduction than to fight with the flying monster and cause death. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 426. None of these police officers regretted their choices at that time. For the other security officers, when they were asked to lead the team and wanted to go out to suppress the monster and maintain the dignity of the security officers, these security officers also had an excuse. They were very clear in their hearts. Through subsequent analysis, the monster's strength level was at least at the level of the top 10 powerful men in the desert. Not only were those beings powerful in their own right, some of them were even related to some. The militaries of the 2 warring countries are afraid of the involvement of forces. They are not willing to cause greater trouble just to vent their anger for a moment. However, when this matter was slowly settling down, city number 5 suddenly received a letter from a diplomat from the biochemical country who wanted to visit. A diplomat from the biochemical nation? Hearing this name, the ruler of city number 5 trembled. The biochemical nation, which rarely sent official figures to deal with cities like these in the past, has been taking too much action recently. What the biochemical nation did in city number 6 on the gray-yellow star has caused an uproar on this warring planet. At that time, diplomats from the biochemical nation announced their visit, and then a large army invaded the territory. The reason was not humane anymore. This sign caused all cities to remain silent. On some planets that have been at war for a long time, it is a common practice for civilizations in nearby star fields to establish some cities that have nothing to do with the war. After all, if the 2 sides are not so quick to tell the difference in the war, then some of the warring planets' trade and military-related businesses will gradually develop, and no one can stop this. It's just that these things are stated openly. In this gray-yellow star, there are more factors and forces that are suppressing it. There are so many historical factors that no matter how hard it is, the war should not have lasted for more than 300 years. It has continued until now, and the 2 parties in the war are except for the Asta people. Empire on the other side, but it has already sadly stepped down, and it has become a battle between the biochemical nation and the Zerg and the Asta people. There have definitely been many changes in this process. Now the biochemical countryman who had forcefully expelled the empire spoke again, going to city number 5 for a diplomatic visit. The rulers of city number 5 who were lying on their backs heard the news. How not to be frightened? Because of the previous events, city number 6 did not fall into ruin, but it also changed its top management. It caused the entire planet to fluctuate. But fear is fear, the situation is stronger than the person. They only have a front door that allows the so-called diplomat of the biochemical country to enter the city. This time, the diplomat of the biochemical country was actually dressed in pure white. A pure white life form with elegant charm and noble birth. As for what they are doing here, no one knows. The only thing is that the police officers who had dealt with the big mosquitoes all entered the diplomat's residence one by one, and they didn't know what happened after that. When they appeared again, they were all concerned about the people they had met before. He kept silent about his dealings with flying monsters, and seemed to be having some difficulties. Not long after, the biochemical nation diplomats in this group did not prevent what happened in city number 6 from happening again in city number 5. However, after a series of investigations, under some unknown circumstances, they quietly left the city that was silent because of their appearance. These beings flew up one by one, and the direction they were traveling in was the boundless desert of gray and yellow stars. Jia Yan still doesn't understand what's going on here. He just made some preparations afterwards, that is, as an outsider, he still has a certain amount of concealment about his whereabouts. Nowadays, when he flies and goes out, he tries his best to wrap his body in the power of brain waves. This not only reduces the probability of outside beings observing him, but also eliminates some of Jia Yan's subtle traces in the outside world, just like the rat monster in the diplomat group can no longer smell his scent. This is the benefit of Jia Yan's actions. Of course, Jia Yan himself still doesn't know the benefits of this. At this time, he is just using the brainwave power method he learned from the white life form as a follow-up guarantee into his daily life. In this situation, he also has another advantage, that is, his subordinates often feel that his assassin is always elusive, often showing up in unexpected situations, and without them noticing. At that time, the huge body disappeared completely. In this way, those subordinates were all shocked by Jia Yan's strange strength. After all, as a being who could defeat Long Liu, his strength was a mythical existence in the primitive Earth convoy. Coupled with his current elusive appearance, it has become even more mysterious. Even under normal circumstances, everyone in the team would not dare to talk about Jia Yan, because the appearance he creates is chilling. However, Jia Yan himself does not feel this way, because he feels that after experiencing the last battle, he has become a little more proactive about things on this planet. He spent less time crawling on top of the tallest chariot and more time taking action. Moreover, I spent more time chatting with Lulu, and I also became familiar with Kajia, who was always with Lulu. In fact, compared to Lulu, the Asta boy was more sensible, and he also knew more about some of the things Jia Yan wanted to know. So gradually, Jia Yan took the initiative to learn a lot about the past of this planet from his mouth. It's true. The surface area of this gray-yellow star is about 10 times that of the Earth. It can be said to be a giant Earth. In addition, this planet is basically short of water. All the water sources come from cosmic ice crystals dropped from outer space from time to time. So, it makes this planet even bigger. Jia Yan felt a little incredible about the size of this planet, because according to Kajia, there are as many as 5 planets in deserts similar to where they are, because the color of each desert is different. Therefore, the people on the gray-yellow star divided them into Golden Desert, Yellow Desert, Gray Desert, Purple Desert and Black Desert according to the color. Each of these deserts exists independently surrounded by forests. The desert where Jia Yan is now. It is called the Golden Desert because the yellow sand here is mostly golden. Of course, the view of it all just on the ground, there is not much difference at all, but you have to go to the sky to understand why he is called Jin Mo. Jia Yan naturally knew why, he had already been thinking about it. The color of this desert looks golden from high in the sky. It looks very beautiful. In addition to these 5 major deserts, there are also many other scattered small desert scenery. But there are many gaps compared to these 5 major ones, and it may even be swallowed by those gray and yellow forests in 100 years. That's right. On this planet, the vast area of the gray forest far exceeds all deserts. It was mentioned in the preface. The forest plants on this planet should not actually be called plants, but a species between plants and living things. In fact, they were the first species dropped by the civilization that came here. But a few hundred years later, not only did these tenacious half-animal, half-plant life forms spread to the entire planet, but even because of the passage of time, the first ones to come here, the matter of arriving on this planet and creating the forests on this planet has become a bit blurry. The Asta people say they cultivated the forest, so they have unquestionable sovereignty over the planet. The empires who were excluded insisted that they discovered this planet, and even said it was conclusive, and even showed some confidential information on the plants to the public. It's just that they have lost the dominance of this planet, so no matter how powerful they dance, it is just a useless effort. As for the guys from the biochemical nation and the Zerg clan, they were very bachelors and directly admitted that they were here to steal the fruit. There are so many things that this planet can produce now, not only the powerful star condensation, but also those forest resources that are so vast that there is no need to worry about extinction. You know, these forests are extremely tenacious. If it weren't for the so-called convoys and forces who are desperately trying to waste the vegetation on this planet, the entire planet would have been covered with gray and yellow trees. What Jia Yan got was a similar general idea. More information was about this golden desert. This golden desert, which is said to have a radius of more than 2,000 kilometers, ranks fourth among the deserts on the entire planet. There are 3 larger deserts above it. However, because this place is located near the equator of the gray-yellow star, the growth of vegetation and the living environment for life forms are excellent, so the number of fleets here is actually the largest among several deserts. There are various forces here, and most of them are actually loose organizations, composed of some galaxy life forms that cannot obtain normal identities and are even wanted. There are so many doorways and things involved. As a child who was born and raised in Jinmo, Kajia still doesn't understand many things. Of course, compared to Lulu, who is even more ignorant, he can give Jia Yan more information. Much information. Top 10 strong men. The one that defeated was Long Wu, who ranked 5th. Jia Yan was shocked when he heard this information. He thought he had defeated an unknown person before, and there were not many powerful people on this planet, so he was inexplicably surprised. Of course, in the surprise, there was also a little excitement full of challenges. But now it seems that this is not necessarily the case. That level of power does not appear so easily. He is actually the 5th strongest man in this desert. However, Jia Yan is not too discouraged, and it is even less likely that the feeling of challenge has disappeared. Because after taking the initiative to learn more about these so-called strong men, he understood even more that to the 2 warring forces, these so-called strong men were nothing more than tiny beings who could not stand out at all. Even if they dispatch the vigilante combat troops of several cities under their indirect control, they can easily strangle these places. However, it is difficult for such a thing to happen, because existence is reasonable. There are so many life forms in several deserts making a living here, which is absolutely inseparable from the acquiescence of both warring parties, and even their own interests are included in it. And a war has been going on for hundreds of years without a winner. If both sides really tried their best, it would be unjustifiable. In fact, it is just a conflict of interests that makes it impossible to easily determine the outcome. Jia Yan even heard Kajia mysteriously saying with that childish little face, this planet is actually filled with the forces of other civilizations, and those who, although most of them have been driven away, still retain considerable strength. The Empire, that is, the shadow of Roland civilization, exists in this place. This is the real reason why the two warring parties cannot easily decide the outcome. Look at it this way. What I have come to is really a planet full of opportunities and dangers. After Jia Yan heard a lot of news, he sneered. He originally had no idea about this planet. But because of the gradual contact during this period, I now know about these alien life forms. After actually having a being more powerful than him, he gradually became interested in this place. If you can get the next mutation from here, or a way to make yourself stronger, Jia Yan doesn't mind working harder to develop in this place. After all, even if we return to Earth, we still have to find a way to survive the crisis of the Roland civilization and the Asta exploration ship 20 years later. That would be worse than being on this planet before finding a way to go back. Let's see if an opportunity arises. Just when he thought of the opportunity, Jia Yan immediately heard some surprising news from Alois. Report, sir. When we were sorting out the legacy of Solin's fleet, we found that there was a huge amount of energy repair fluid on their command vehicle. Although it has been used by Nalongluo, the remaining energy is still huge. Don't know what to do with them. Alois reported respectfully in front of Jia Yan. In the past few days, Alois has been sorting out the belongings of Sarin's convoy. Although there are a large number of descendants, he still has to go through everything, and most of the time he is looking for the nutrient solution that Jia Yan wants. Although Jia Yan didn't know what the use of that kind of thing was, he still did as he was told. In fact, he is still extremely horrified in his heart. After knowing that the Lord Assassin was actually a powerful being capable of defeating the fifth strongest Longwu head-on, Alois's attitude toward Jia Yan became even more respectful. After all, there are actually many powerful beings in this desert, but Alois knew that Nalongwu was able to climb to the level of recognized fifth place in battle after battle. He was definitely extremely powerful in his own right, but the flying life in front of him, the Assassin Lord, was able to expel it. Although the Lord himself admitted that he only severely injured Longwu and did not take his life, but this was enough. As for Longwu's strength, this former leader of Orlux, who was not very strong, but was well informed, absolutely knew that under normal circumstances, if he wanted to directly kill Longwu, the fifth strongest man, he would be the first to kill him. None of the three strong men dared to guarantee it. Maybe it was the strongest and most mysterious Master Guanga who was the strongest and most mysterious in this desert who could guarantee it. And the assassin he served was able to seriously injure Lord Nalongwu and defeat him. This incident made Alois's heart tremble. What's even more amazing is that the number one subordinate under the Lord now is himself. He felt that he had really encountered a great opportunity. Energy repair fluid. Under normal circumstances, Jia Yan didn't want to expose his lack of common sense, so he tried not to talk to those adult life forms before, but learned from Lulu and Kajia that big part of the news. When he suddenly heard the unfamiliar word energy repair fluid, what he immediately thought of was the strange sound of bubbles he heard during the battle with Nalongwu that day. Of course, just from the name, it can be seen that this liquid should actually be a kind of energy repairing thing. Jia Yan became a little interested for a while. He was interested in everything related to energy. Take me over there and take a look before we talk. He didn't ask what it was, but said calmly. Instead of asking and having someone guess a clue, it's better to go and see for yourself. Jia Yan didn't know that finding Shuyuan would be the opportunity he had been talking about before. Until Jia Yan came here, he had attacked him, and then he fought with Longwu, and pushed aside the huge command vehicle of the Solin convoy. After seeing the green liquid inside, he had been calm and calm. There was finally a hint of emotional ups and downs in his compound eyes. At this time, if you can share his organ of attraction to energy, then you will know why he is like this. He has always relied on his own attraction to energy to gradually reach this point. But now that he saw this pool of turquoise liquid again, he felt a great sense of desire in his energy induction. Why is this feeling so similar to the feeling when absorbing N.A. Longwu's blood? Could it be that when I absorbed his blood, what I absorbed was not his blood at all, but the green liquid remaining in his body? That's right. That guy was in this pool before he fought with me. If I say that when I absorbed him, there was still a lot of this turquoise liquid left in his body, then it would make sense. Jia Yan's compound eyes finally became brighter and brighter. In fact, he still regretted a little before, how could he let N.A. Longwu go? If you know that he absorbed the blood of the opponent's body, it might be worth more than 10 bottles of intermediate nutrient solution, may even be worth a bottle of high-end nutrient solution. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 427. But now Jia Yan immediately took back that little bit of regret. If he were to absorb such a large pool of turquoise liquid, is it possible to completely restore the energy he lost? Thinking of this, Jia Yan couldn't hide the joy in his heart. Sir. Alo stood next to Jia Yan. When he saw Jia Yan hesitating and thinking, he immediately asked. It's okay, you did a good job, now go out. These energy repair fluids are very useful to me. Jia Yan calmed down and then ordered Alo's to leave. Alo's left with deeper doubts. As a person who has had more contact with Jia Yan, he may have seen some clues of what Jia Yan was doing from Jia Yan's repeated orders to search for nutrient solutions. However, after seeing Jia Yan's efforts to repair these energy liquid, after having such an excited look in the bottom of his heart, another thought suddenly came to his mind. Nutritional solution and energy repair solution have a certain effect on replenishing energy and repairing injuries for those powerful beings. Could it be that your current body is actually in a state of hand? How is it possible, if it is really the case? In this case, such an injured adult can defeat Longwu, and if he is completely repaired. Thinking of this, Alo's was stunned by his guess, and he quickly did not dare to continue thinking about it. After all, this guess was too shocking. No matter what, the strength of the Assassin Lord is not a bad thing for them. During the previous battle, the Assassin Lord allowed them to let go of their disadvantages at first, but when the situation was really unfavorable, didn't he still help? Alo's, who looked calmer, went away, while Jia Yan, whose compound eyes had a faint luster, stared at the green liquid in front of him. Sure enough, these interstellar civilizations are where my future opportunities will lie. Where on earth can I encounter such an opportunity? Jia Yan looked at the liquids that strongly tempted him, and he knew it. The attraction of these liquids to him now. It is different from the attraction during mutation. The substance that can mutate does not feel like this. It is an attraction similar to food. But such attraction, it still has a great effect on his current energy restoration. Jia Yan doesn't know what is the effect of these turquoise liquids, but it should not be harmful to your body. I hope it can really replenish my body's energy. Let it be completely repaired, he thought expectantly. Not long after, the huge body of the big mosquito appeared. It just slowly levitated. The height of this car was not high, so he could only use his own brainwave power. It floated up slightly, and then gradually. First there are 6 long legs, then the body, and then the head. Wing. Not long after, the whole person entered the turquoise liquid. Goo goo goo. Jia Yan was immersed in the liquid. Although he could last for a long time without breathing, he still used his respiratory organs to take a gentle sip of the turquoise liquid. Comfortable. Even these liquids are sucked into the body by the respiratory organs and directly converted into energy, which also contains part of the oxygen, so that his body is not in danger of hypoxia. At the same time, some condensation slowly appeared on the surface of his body. Not long after, the entire body of the big mosquito was covered with soft condensation, and then there was that strange devouring effect in the body of the big mosquito. The effect is activated. Gudong, gudong. In the turquoise pool, there was a sudden rippling movement. This kind of movement is not big, but if you witness it with your own eyes, you will definitely be extremely frightened. In the pool, you can see a huge monster completely submerged in the pool. However, he did not show any signs of drowning. At this time, countless bubbles appeared on the surface of his body. These bubbles are the result of swallowing up the turquoise liquid very quickly. Even this effect is several times more exaggerated than the previous noise caused by Na Long Wuo. However, at this time, there was no living thing in the car body. Only the emergency lights, which were turned on urgently, were faintly releasing their brilliance, witnessing this magical scene. The big mosquito once again entered a process of energy replenishment. However, at this time, the impact of the giant mosquito on this planet has begun to show signs of becoming more severe. A powerful life form that suddenly appeared may not be a big deal to the military on both sides of the war, but to Jin Mo, who never had many strong people, it was news. For a while, there were some rumors in the nearby desert, that is, an extremely powerful flying monster appeared, which may be as powerful as those old strong men. But the strange thing is that the rumors about this big mosquito are nothing more than that. His victory over Long Wu, the fifth strongest man, and his performance with Solin's team seemed to have become a whole lot weaker. People couldn't help but feel that he was not a living being capable of fighting against the top 10 strongest men. In fact, this is Jia Yan's strategy. He had vaguely realized that after he arrived on this planet, a mysterious force was chasing him, just like the white life form he encountered before. Perhaps it was the existence in the force that was chasing him. So after escaping from the sixth city, he studied the hiding method of the white life form along the way. After studying it some time ago, he directly applied this hiding method to his daily life. In this way, his true identity, there are fewer and fewer life forms in sight. Since he wanted to hide his traces, he implemented this method thoroughly at this time, so the Earth convoy and the life forms captured in Thorin's convoy behind were strictly prohibited from passing on their news to the outside world, so that the outside world had no idea about this big mosquito. I only had a vague impression of it, but I never imagined that this monster would actually be a strong man, even more powerful than Long Wuo. With these strategies, Jia Yan's famous area is limited to a smaller area, and if it is just an ordinary strong person, except that he is a flying organism, which attracts a little attention, ordinary life forms. When I heard this news, I basically forgot about it after hearing it for a long time. And the defeated fifth strongest man, the giant Long Wuo, escaped with his life. I believe it is impossible to publicize your failure everywhere. After all, that's not a very glorious thing. All in all, the big mosquito really had a hidden time in this area, and gradually learned about this desert and the planet. Jia Yan seems to be slowly becoming more integrated into this world. Time passes quickly. He was still soaked in the green liquid. Maybe one day has passed, maybe 2 days have passed. On a certain day, a behemoth soaring past where Thorin's convoy was. This flying monster can cover up the sky and the sun. The body, which is dozens of meters long, looks like a small mountain of aircraft, making people unable to help but worship him. And it's on top of this monster, riding on several equally large monsters. The white monster that Jia Yan is very familiar with is on top of it. Sir, should we go down and ask the forces in Huangzhou? Maybe they will have traces of the flying monster. A monster that looked like a rat spirit asked at this time. Compared with the monsters around us that are as large as 10 or 20 meters. This mouse monster is only the size of an ordinary earthling. It is as small as a little mouse standing next to humans, but it is just a mouse monster. The white life form glanced at the rat monster, and then the rat monster felt a violent brainwave force hit his chest and abdomen. Phew! The rat monster spurted out a mouthful of purple blood and couldn't help but take a few steps back. His expression suddenly became sluggish. I said, "You have to call him sir, do you understand?" The white monster appeared with 3 horns on its head and flashing lightning light. I understand." The rat monster looked at the white monster with a ruthless look in its eyes, and quickly shuddered and lowered his head. The white monster obviously didn't like the rat monster, so after giving him a warning, he snorted coldly and stopped paying attention to his words. "What happened to my father? Why are you so sure that he is that kind of existence? And why do you do that? What should you do if you can't find him?" Thinking of what her bull-horned monster father said to her and what he did, the white monster became agitated. If the monster is really the kind of being destined for greatness, then it is okay for the father to make such a decision, but what if the other party is not? The white monster, which was getting more and more irritable, did not notice that its 3 horns had an even brighter white light. Those crackling lightnings made the surrounding monsters stay away from her to avoid accidental injuries. "Well, have you been a little irritable lately, miss?" The rat spirit suddenly made a sound transmission with the power of brain waves. This sound can only be heard by the target person, and it is difficult for others to hear it. A huge monster with 7 legs standing next to him shook his head and said that he didn't know, maybe the Asta people have read too many books and movies. You know, Asta women, there are special days every month when your temper will become unstable. The rat monster here hasn't responded yet, only the white light is crackling. "What are you guys saying?" White light struck, and all the monsters were hit without exception. Even the huge flying monster they were riding on, which didn't seem to have a high IQ, let out a soft moo of pain. Although this lightning attack did not really hurt them, the monster's schedule and their intention to descend for questioning were missed like this. These monsters have no idea that their goals are right under their feet. And in the Huangzhou of Salin's convoy, Jia Yan, who was quietly waiting for the energy to be restored, did not realize that a crisis above his head was actually passed by him without knowing it. His body slowly absorbed the green liquid into his internal organs, and then the exoskeleton on the surface of his body slowly filtered and eliminated the unnecessary liquid. Because of this process, the turquoise color in the entire pool gradually becomes transparent. If it continues, it is foreseeable that a pool of turquoise liquid worth an unknown amount may even be completely absorbed by him, and then converted into a pool of useless waste liquid. Of course, it may take a while to get to that point. Thorin and other former prisoners of Thorin's convoy who were taken as prisoners by the outside world might be really heartbroken if they knew that the green liquid they had spent a lot of money to collect could be completely consumed by giant mosquitoes so easily. You must know that this is just to please the 5th strongman Long Wu. And specifically spent most of the team's money. I even sold some of the weapons to barely get this amount of energy repair fluid, and this amount is enough for a monster of Long Wu's level to use it about 5 times. It was precisely because of this that they exchanged the condition of Long Wu protecting them for a period of time. Only then are they willing to spend a lot of money to do so. But who would have thought that the big mosquito would almost exhaust the green liquid after just one absorption? Of course now they are just prisoners. Heartache or not, it doesn't matter. After all, this is already the property of the Earth Fleet. This was the first time they heard the name of the so-called Earth Convoy, and it was also the first time they knew that Lokafu was dead. And for the first time, they knew the conditions for their survival. Just obey the leadership of the Lord Assassin and fight for him. If they don't obey, only death awaits them. Can you disobey? Most of the powerful Thorin caravan warriors. I can only obey. After all, in this desert, it is natural for the weak to obey the strong. What's more, most of the members of Sauron's convoy actually joined Sauron's convoy for profit. Now there are more powerful ones. There is nothing unhappy about being the leader of them. The conquest of Thorin's team was simpler than Olux expected. Very good, Lord Assassin is so powerful that he is simply invincible in this area. As long as he does not extend his tentacles to the territory of those big forces and stronger beings, our Earth convoy will definitely develop quickly. Olux was a little excited when he thought about how the Earth racing team, whose name was a bit awkward to pronounce, would develop in the future. You know, at least until now, he has always been the second in command. If this development continues, no one can guarantee what the Earth racing team will develop in the future. Master Assassin doesn't like to take care of things. If there is someone who wants to compete with me for power in the future, we must suppress it, because he understood a little bit of Big Mosquito's character. Alus's desire for power became even stronger. Finally, after 3 days on the Grey Star, equivalent to half a month on Earth, a loud noise suddenly appeared in the half-destroyed command vehicle in the center of Huangzhou. Boom! The car body exploded, and some maintenance workers who were urgently repairing this important car were affected by the shockwave and flew to the ground. Fortunately, life forms in the desert are generally rough-skinned and thick-bodied, so this shockwave did not brought too many casualties to them. What's going on? All the life forms were stunned, and some stood up dizzy to watch the movement of the car body over there. Under their gaze, they saw a slender foot stabbing out from the car over there. It penetrated the car body easily. Then the other foot also stabbed out, making a crisp thumping sound, which made people's hair stand on end. The 2 legs were extremely sharp. After a quick rotation in place, they cut a gap in the top of the car body. The huge dark life form slowly climbed out of the period. Big Mosquito. When those maintenance life forms saw the big mosquito that had been sleeping, it finally revealed its figure. They all hurriedly crawled down and shouted, "Lord Assassin," showing great respect. Jia Yan is indeed awake. The repair process this time took so long, which was beyond his expectation. The repair alone took so long. It is foreseeable that if you want to mutate in the future, it may take even longer. It might be more complicated. But now is not the time to think about that. Jia Yan used his 6 long legs to slowly crawl out of the car body, and then shook the liquid on his body. These liquids are all transparent and crystal clear, with no greenish feel at all. The life forms that were cleaning up afterward would probably be surprised if they saw that the green liquid was all converted into waste liquid with little energy content, right? Jia Yan thought of this and smiled in his heart. After shaking off the liquid from his body, he flew gently. Wings vibrate. This familiar sense of energy and the feeling of being full of strength have really been gone for a long time. Comfortable. Happy. Feeling the feeling of fullness in his body, Jia Yan almost wanted to scream. Due to lack of energy, he had been suppressed for so long, and now he has finally returned to the energy of his heyday. His body soared into the air. Compared to before, the body has not changed much. But the energy in the body is full. Such a sense of strength and comfort are simply incomparable to the previous semi-disabled state. The excitement in Jia Yan's heart could not be greater. His body quickly penetrated into the clouds. The sky on this planet is that kind of gray-yellow color, but if it breaks through to the sky, that wonderful gray-yellow color will also have a strange attraction. The big mosquito, full of energy, finally has the heart to watch these things. To be clear, that is the Jia Yan of the past. Because he has not recovered to a complete state on this planet, even if there are some beautiful things, he has no intention to appreciate them. But now the energy has been restored, and it is completely restored. At this time, he can naturally discover more beauty and more undiscovered details. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 428. The huge gray-yellow sun, Scholz's main star, was directly above his eyes. Jia Yan looked at the distant star, and the other party seemed to be looking at him. The charm of this galaxy and the beauty of this planet became colorful in the eyes of the big mosquito. But what Jia Yan is still most concerned about is his physical condition. It feels so good to have completely regained my strength. Even my body, maybe due to repeated loss of energy, is now more solid. There is also brainwave power. It seems that my brainwave power has increased a lot during my time on this planet. Now that I have restored all my strength, even my brainwave power has become stronger. In summary, now compared to the me in my full state on Earth, I am a lot stronger, and if you include the brainwave power, it may be more than 2/3 stronger. Buzz buzz buzz. The big mosquito soared gently in the sky, and underneath it were clouds that were illuminated by the sun and turned golden. At this time, the big mosquito seemed to be illuminated by the sun, and its body was golden and full of exotic charm. Jia Yan's flight lasted for almost half an hour, and then he slowly returned to the Earth's convoy. The restoration of energy not only gave Jia Yan more energy, but also changed his mentality. After all, before, he had no clue and was just thinking of some whimsical ways to return to Earth. But now that his thoughts have become clearer, he has a detailed plan. Yes, after I control these fleets, I can use them to help me earn some money. Then I will find a way to buy a powerful aircraft capable of interstellar navigation. Although I have wasted a month or two on this planet, but it will take the exploration ship 20 years to reach the Earth, and I might be able to get back to the Earth before them. Jia Yan still doesn't know that Daifuni deceived him about the return time of the exploration ship. They actually arrived on the Earth only about 10 years ago, and the navigation route of the exploration ship is a trajectory navigation method that Jia Yan is not clear about. If Jia Yan returns from this gray-yellow star, even if he buys a powerful aircraft, it is impossible to arrive so quickly, but he doesn't understand this at all now and is just calculating these things. Jia Yan for others. I didn't think too much about it. He never thought that there were so many forces in this desert. Why is there no one who can conquer all the others, and why do those strong men stay in this place where birds do not lay eggs? There must be some inside story that she hasn't thought of yet. In fact, in general, it is because Jia Yan does not understand this alien world. The asymmetry of information leads to the big mosquitoes who are still quite smart. Handling affairs at this time does not seem so sophisticated. Of course, as he gets to know this place a little bit, Jia Yan will gradually fill in the shortcomings of his own understanding of this place. And at this time he regained his full strength, and even more so after arriving on this planet because of the power of brainwaves. There is also a certain growth, and even if we rely on strength, we can deal with certain crises. So it is still possible to avoid being eliminated until you have an effective way of survival. Of course, there are no absolutes. If he encounters those powerful forces, or encounters the white life form and his entourage, it is not certain whether Jia Yan can survive well. Sir, you are back. Alus had been waiting below the convoy for a long time. Looking at the big mosquitoes landing in the sky, his face became more respectful. He had previously received a report from the life forms that maintain the vehicle, saying that the assassin actually damaged the command vehicle again and flew into the sky. After he went to observe, he came to the conclusion that Jia Yan's powerful the monster was really what he thought. At this time, it was through those energy repair fluids that it completely restored its strength. You must know that he was able to deal with Longwu before. No one knows how strong he is now, so how can Alus be disrespectful when facing the big mosquito? Jia Yan landed lightly on the ground. At this time, the sky had turned gray, and another night was coming. Surrounding him were some chariot buildings that gradually turned on their lights. The chariot teams at this time were larger than before, and after the Earth convoy occupied the territory of Thorin's convoy, all the old, weak, sick, and disabled were placed in the Yellow Continent. Now the integrated convoy, all became those powerful elite soldiers. It can be said that Alus has done an extremely good job. Jia Yan is even thinking that if he had not taken care of so many old, weak, sick and disabled people in the past, his Alus team might not be the same again. It might be several times more powerful. The fleet has been integrated. Let's start selecting the next war target immediately. Jia Yan looked at the life forms in the surrounding convoy and immediately issued an order. In the next battle, he will directly use his own strength, because now it seems that the life forms of those convoys have slacked off a little bit. After all, as members of a convoy, they can only come together for profit, even if no matter how powerful Jia Yan is, after every battle, no desert spoils are distributed to them. This kind of thing is a huge blow to morale. Are we going to fight again? Okay, I'll make arrangements right now. There was a hint of hesitation in Alus's expression, but under Jia Yan's cold gaze, he immediately trembled, and then he ran down helplessly and started preparations for the war. As a convoy leader who used to be known as benevolent and righteous, this character couldn't bear to see those life forms continue to die and be injured. You must know that in the previous battle, almost half of the old men in the Oryx convoy had been killed or injured. If the fight continued, he didn't know what would happen to the people in the Lokafa convoy and Solon convoy, but the people in the Oryx convoy were soldiers. Gao will not really suffer too many casualties. But the Lord Assassin's order cannot be refused. The Earth Army is on the move again. Under the gaze of the old, weak, sick, and disabled of the Earth Army, they rushed towards the surrounding forces in the dark. Even the most powerful Thoran convoy in the surrounding area was easily destroyed by the Earth Army. It is impossible for other forces to stop them. Although there were casualties, the big Mosquito didn't care at all at this time. Even those who have never seen those dead and injured. In his eyes, even if the life forms that help him fight are intelligent life forms, Jia Yan has a very low sense of identity, especially these life forms. There are also various shapes. Therefore, his understanding of these monsters is to treat them as animals. At least he is not kind enough to have an intolerable attitude toward these monsters. A one-night expedition. The casualties remained. What? The Earth Army? What the hell is this? Aren't they from Solon's convoy? How is that possible? They actually joined forces with Alus and Lokaf's convoy. Run away, it's impossible to defeat. There is no way to escape, there is an inexplicably powerful existence. You can't even see his shadow in the darkness. Surrender, the only way to do it is to surrender. Every living thing. In a late-night battle, he was captured and surrendered. Jia Yan soars in the sky. His darkness, and the wrapping of brainwave power. It made him feel like a real assassin, every attack was so precise. With his help, the Earth Army's casualties today were reduced to a minimum, and it can even be said that there was no damage at all. A battle chariot, trapped in a desperate situation, hid behind a pile of yellow sand and quietly raised its gun barrel. But just when this tank was about to launch an attack on an Earth military tank ahead, a huge figure appeared in the sky, attacking at a speed that ordinary life forms could not react to. Boom! The car body made a crackling sound, and the planned attack was naturally unable to be launched. The battle in which the Earth Army swept through two nearby small convoys like a violent wind quickly ended. With 3 groups of convoy warriors, the Earth Army's combat effectiveness cannot be underestimated. If those special powerful weapons are added, even Jia Yan seems to have a slight threat. This kind of combat power means that he does not need to release all his strength in battle. He can only rely on his own strength to relieve the crisis when the Earth's military convoys are in crisis. Therefore, not only his strength has been improved, but also his strength has been improved. There are many hidden things, and the soldiers of the Earth Army also have a sense of identity. After all, as a strong man, he must ensure that when his subordinates launch a battle, they should try their best to ensure the casualties of his subordinates. A strong man who can protect himself like Jia Yan is a leader who is loved by the soldiers. What Jia Yan actually wants to do is very simple, that is, not to be as disappointed as those convoy soldiers. In the previous battles, because Jia Yan needed to collect those supplies, very few trophies were distributed. In addition, the team suffered a lot of casualties, so each of the members felt afraid of fighting, and they had no choice but to fight. Of course I don't want to fight anymore. But Jia Yan's performance this time made the members feel surprised. As a rumor in the convoy, a strong man who could defeat Nalong Wu, the assassin master, actually continued to take care of these chariot members during this battle. The casualties were reduced to a minimum, which gave their members a sense of surprise. And after this battle, Jia Yan did not collect all the loot like he did in the previous battle. In fact, it happened like this before because Jia Yan believed what Ulu said about the information that those things can be exchanged for nutrient solution, so he wanted to collect materials as soon as possible and exchange them with some fleets or forces specializing in exchange work. Nutrient solution was used to forcefully collect all supplies. But now that he has recovered his energy, he is not a fool. He knows that if he still does that, he will never be able to make this team that was reluctantly integrated because of his strong methods become an obedient team, so at this time let go of your authority. O Lux, all the supplies this time will be distributed and rewards will be given based on merit. Just be fair. At the moment when he was returning home, Jia Yan made a faint sound of brainwave power, and then took the lead, heading back to Huangzhou. This. Thank you, sir. When Alus heard this, the expression of the big frog that was originally a little sad suddenly became filled with joy, and then he quickly made a sound of thanks regardless of whether the big mosquito could hear it or not. It was destined to be a sleepless night for the Earth convoy when it was first built. Jia Yan, who was crawling on a giant tree like a hill, looked at the merging of several convoys on the edge of Huangzhou, singing and dancing there, and shook his head slightly. He discovered that these alien life forms are really similar to humans on Earth. No big difference. It is also interests that drive action. For a small profit, one can sacrifice generously. Although until now, actually the life forms over there, they still rely on his strong threats to get entangled. Some of them even had blood feuds, some of which Jia Yan didn't even notice. There will be some living beings who die on the roadside in unknown places. But these are temporary situations. Today's battle has made Jia Yan see the future team. Maybe they will really become a strong team under his leadership. It's just that it takes time. Assassin. Master Assassin. Suddenly, Jia Yan heard a rustling sound coming from beside him. Looking down, he saw a thin figure appearing under Jia Yan's huge body. At this time, he was lying on the crown of a tree in Huangzhou that was 100 meters high, and the branches were lowered by him. It was easy for him to get here, but for a kid with rabbit ears who was not much stronger than the people on Earth, it was not that easy. I saw the exposed face covered in dust, and I don't know how much time it took to climb up. She hugged the tree trunk pitifully and tightly, swaying 100 meters in the air, as if she would fall at any time. What's the matter? Jia Yan asked with the power of his brain waves, trying not to blow the little bunny-eared girl under the tree. I saw that your body was a little dirty after the battle just now, so I wanted to come up and help you wipe it off. Lulu, who looked like a 7 or 8-year-old child with chubby baby face, pointed at some stains on Jia Yan's body caused by the battle. Jia Yan looked down and couldn't help but laugh. He had been reborn for so long and had never paid attention to hygiene. When he fought before, he didn't pay much attention to it. Some smoke and dust just got on him. After looking at this little girl with bunny ears, I was a little afraid to look directly at her innocent eyes. Just wipe it, be careful, don't fall. Jia Yan finally shook his head helplessly. And he heard it right, he said words of concern. This is an unprecedented thing. It should even be said that this may be the first time that Jia Yan has said such thoughtful words in such a long time since his rebirth. After he said such words himself, he felt that the function of words was a little weak. The girl with the little bunny ears didn't see so much. After Jia Yan agreed, the corner of her smiling eyes turned into a crooked little moon, and then she crawled awkwardly and slowly until she reached Jia Yan's place. Feet that are thicker than hers. She held the piece of cloth in her hand that was licking quickly, and then started to wipe it gently along Jia Yan's feet. Jia Yan looked at her movements and wanted to ask, his body was so huge, could these pieces of cloth not need to be washed and could they be wiped clean at once? But he still held back his words. Master Assassin, do you want to listen to singing? Lulu sings beautifully. Lulu wiped hard and suddenly asked. Jia Yan burst into laughter again, and shook his head speechlessly, shaking his little rabbit ears so much that they almost fell under the tree, and then he continued, you can sing if you want. Okay, Lulu is singing. Lulu put on a straight face and raised her bunny ears, as if she was very happy. She cleared her throat, and then a melodious child's voice came softly from her young lips. My family far away. My parents from afar. That distant family, that distant hometown. You know, I miss you so much. The little animals running briskly under the moon, the fragrance of the soil in the green grass, the gurgling water on the earth. Everything beautiful. The noisy fighting in the city destroyed everything. The enemy's powerful warships destroyed these. I can never come back, my family, I can never come back, my hometown. The child's voice is gentle and really beautiful. It can even be said that it is beyond the scope of what children can interpret. Compared with the children of the same age on Earth, Lulu's singing skills and natural conditions are much better. The songs she sings a cappella seem to blend into the surrounding environment. The sound of the wind is hers. The accompaniment, the rustling of leaves, is her accompaniment, and the shadows swaying under the dim gray light are her dancing accompaniment. Her singing voice was beautiful, and even her movements while singing and wiping had a rhythm. But the meaning in the lyrics makes people feel sad. What we can know is that this is definitely a song about war. Jia Yan listened way in the bottom of his heart and let out a long sigh. At this moment, he felt that these alien life forms were more vivid. Lulu's flesh and blood performance made him feel the same physically and mentally, and even had a strong sense of identity. Poor, sad, deplorable. He gently lowered his body to the ground, causing the little girl with rabbit ears, who was wiping his body and singing a cappella, to squat more steadily. Although each of these life forms is not so similar to the people on Earth, they are still living intelligent beings, with their own joys and sorrows, as well as their own relatives and friends. So, how are they different from the people on Earth? Woolen cloth. Regarding race and life, Jia Yan suddenly had more thoughts at this time. The night is still so deep. But in the dark night, a flying monster that has regained its fighting power and may even be stronger than its previous peak state has gained a vague understanding of life on this strange planet. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 429. What Jia Yan didn't know was that the rumors about his own life form were spreading in a clearer way from the mouths of the life forms around the area he occupied and from the Earth's convoy under his command. The speed of this dispersion is extremely fast. What he didn't even know was that his own strength and the matter of attacking the forces with all his strength was already against the law. It was a huge crime in the desert. As for the life forms in the convoy, they didn't know this, because the strong men who had committed this crime in the past all met a miserable end. No one even knows what kind of punishment he suffered. This rule has been circulated among powerful forces and powerful life forms. Low-level forces and life forms have no right to know at all. An unknown place, in this place, there are some inexplicable existences gathered together. These existences are shrouded in shadows one by one. Their number and size are unknown. Only the voices that emerge one by one are constantly echoing, making people feel chilly in their hearts. We were also at fault for this flying monster when it approached the desert, that is, we did not send a strong man over to give it a warning, so my opinion is to give him another chance. Send a strong man over and give him a verbal warning. If he dares to resist or violates the rules again, it's time for punishment. But we still have to figure out each other's strength, so that things like before can't happen again. Not long after, the sound dissipated, and in this lonely place, it seemed that all life fell silent again. Then there was an extremely thin being, rising quietly from the darkness and slowly flying away. Time passed again, and a huge creature appeared in this dark place. People below. Diplomats from the biochemical country are here. Come out. The behemoth soaring in the sky has a body length of tens of meters, and its wings are spread out, and can even cover a radius of more than 100 meters. Incredibly huge. Just as it arrived, there was a clearly audible sound. Passed down from above. With the sound of this sound, the shadows of several powerful and incomparable life forms appeared on the back of the huge flying life form. One of the figures was completely white. The strong body has perfect curves, which can be said to be the beautiful life form of creation. There are 3 horns on top of her head. The electric light flashed between the horns, as if the sky-swallowing thunder was shining. These life forms. Being high in the sky, looking at the dark place below calmly, I am not impatient. Just waiting. The dark place was still silent, without a sound. It was as if those mysterious existences before had really completely left. But the silence didn't last long. I wonder what you, the diplomat of the biochemical nation, want to do when you come to where we old immortals are? We don't have the strength to make you take notice, do we? From underneath the darkness, an extremely old voice suddenly came out, just like an octogenarian on Earth, with a hoarse and weak voice. You guys should be humble. Jinmo's strength is something we, the biochemical nation, need to be a little wary of. But today we are here not to cause trouble, but to ask for news. If you are honest, then everything will be fine. If you don't tell the truth. The white life form emits a clear female voice, the sound is as beautiful as a lark. But the meaning of the words does not make people feel chilled to the bone. If we are not honest, then we think that Jinma's Hong's strength needs to be rectified. The person below was silent for a while, and then he sighed quietly. At this time, the person below seemed to have a less friendly tone. The biochemical nation is indeed overbearing. I wonder what you want to ask. The white life forms above had already made preparations and were attentive, waiting for the opponent to burst out and hurt someone. However, when they heard that the opponent had relented, they all breathed a sigh of relief. You must know that certain forces in the Golden Desert and the forest are also a huge threat to the biochemical nation, which has mastered the general trend of this planet. The main thing is that behind these forces, there are faint shadows of other interstellar civilizations, and they have rashly launched. Fighting is also an unbearable thing for the biochemical nation. We want to inquire about the traces of a flying monster, and we have concluded that he has come to this Golden Desert. We don't need you to give out the information now. You just need to contact us when you get his information. The white life form in the sky dropped a specially made technological object. This is the communicator. It contains his relevant information. This thing is exquisite and small, as if made of pure gold. Just as the object was being thrown, and it was about to fall into the dense fog below, a huge and slender thing suddenly moved out. He shot up, entangled the technological thing for a while, and then disappeared like lightning, as if nothing had appeared before. I understand. If there is any news, we will inform you. The voice of the old man below had a hint of seeing off guests. Well, we are looking forward to your news. The white life form had a hint of smile in the air, and then the light on the 3 horns crackled and went out. Afterwards, the huge flying life form gradually turned around. The sky and the earth roared as it moved, making great noises. Soon it flew slowly and left this place. The group of people had not left for long when a voice immediately sounded in the haze below, making a faint sound of surprise. But not long after, the sound slowly disappeared, and in the mist, there was an interesting gaze, looking at the direction where the white life form and other monsters left, staring for a long time. What the white life forms and those monsters were discussing in the dense land were all distant matters to Jiayan. He didn't know the discussions and calculations there at all, but at this time, he was concerned about the continuous battle. The harvest, as well as some more understandings about this planet, slowly became a unified organization and thinking. There are many powerful life forms on this planet. This is the conclusion he finally came to. Although no one knew how strong the so-called two warring armies were, Jiayan knew it just by thinking about it. Including powerful life forms like Longwu. None of them thought about resisting the warring parties. This shows how powerful the Asta people, biochemical nation and Zerg are. But when it comes to how powerful they are, Jiayan asked many of his life forms. But few can tell, after all, their life level has not reached that level. It is impossible to even understand why those beings are fighting on this planet, even Jiayan knows. They have been fighting for the minerals on this planet for hundreds of years. These life forms living on this planet don't even know. One occupies a radius of more than 10 kilometers. There is a gray-yellow forest area here. If it were on Earth, this place would definitely be an area with dense vegetation, but on this planet, this place is just a yellow continent in the desert. Very good, the latest harvest. We can pack it up and contact you through the previous methods. After selling it, we can see what equipment we need. After that, for the things I mentioned, ask about the price. If it is suitable, then buy it. A huge dark life form crawled in the light and made the sound of brainwave power activating to the life forms around it. Okay, Alo stood respectfully next to this thing. There were some flesh on his big frog's cheek. At this time, the flesh was trembling, as if he wanted to say something but didn't dare to say it. Okay, if there's nothing else, please step back. The dark life form was naturally Jiayan. At this time, he had just woken up from a semi-sleep state, and he called Ulus to come over. Report results. For him, this Earth convoy is just a means for him to do some things, so he doesn't care about rights. As long as he can do things well for himself, he can do it even if he doesn't serve as the leader of this convoy. So almost everything was left to Ulus. But it's a pity that this guy's vision is too small. Even when he heard Jiayan mention the word spacecraft before, he seemed to have heard something incredible, and he looked at Jiayan blankly. I also know that an aircraft that can fly in space cannot be so easy to obtain, but this guy put on an impossible expression when he heard it. It seems that he has some talent, but he is not someone who can do big things. The Earth team is now. The situation was also a bit chaotic under his management. Jiayan watched Oryx leave. Generally speaking, Jiayan was satisfied with this big frog. After all, he was able to fully execute his orders, which had already made the big Mosquito, who had just arrived, have a great feeling. It has a great help effect, but at this time, the performance of being a small person is revealed. After all, this frog life form was just the leader of a small convoy in the past, and his vision and thinking were limited. Jiayan had previously asked him to count the gains of the recent attack, and then carried out an exchange with the forces that secretly exchanged materials with these convoys. As a result, what Jiayan reported did not frighten Ulus. Paralyzed on the ground. He wants a spacecraft. You must know that even a small civilian spacecraft cannot be owned by these little people, especially on this barren warring planet. It is even more impossible. Unless those super powerful forces, or some beings who really make a lot of money on this planet, can own a spacecraft, nothing else is possible. Of course, there are many ways to leave this planet. Life forms with normal identities can go to those cities, buy tickets to leave the gray-yellow star, and leave in official large-scale aircraft. Even if you do not have a legal identity, there will be some snakehead-like characters who will use various methods to take you to the large aircraft, And you can leave later, but it will cost more or less money. And if you want to buy an aircraft to leave this planet, it is really almost impossible. And even if you have so much money, on this planet where supplies are extremely scarce, the price of aircraft has been increased several times or even more than 10 times. There are a lot of procedures for leaving the planet. That's why Allos looked so surprised. But if this guy is unreliable, there is no other guy who I think is trustworthy. After all, he has managed a team. Could it be that he wants me to use the leader of Solon team to do things? But that guy hasn't treated me yet. Show loyalty. There is indeed some confusion in the Earth's convoy at this time. When Jia Yan was sleeping, some of the former members of Solon's convoy and Lokafu's convoy quietly escaped. Jia Yan could only express his helplessness. After all, it was impossible for him to control such a large convoy and they wanted to escape. Even if he didn't sleep, he just needed an excuse to go out on patrol or get some fresh air or something. They could always escape. In fact, the total population of the three convoys should have reached about 25,000. At this time, there were still about 20,000 people. No matter how many calculations were taken, there were still 5,000 people left. This is a very scary thing. It's a pity that I don't have the talent for management, and I don't understand the affairs of this alien planet. I can only let it go. If I had known, in the past, I would have found a way to kidnap De Funi. That old monster who has lived for 300 years. Maybe there would be a way to manage it. Thinking of these things, Jia Yan felt helpless. Just when Jia Yan was getting more confused, his compound eyes appeared. But suddenly a flash of anger flashed through. His head shot up. Because Jia Yan sensed a figure flying fast in the sky from the distant horizon. It's less than 2 kilometers away from here. There was also a hint of contemplation on his expression, and then he slowly stood up. It was still night at this time, and there was not much light in the distant sky. However, to a being like Jia Yan, the movement there was already something as clear as the sun. The opponent's brainwave power is extremely powerful. Jia Yanfu's eyes were solemn, and then the wings on his abdomen vibrated. The body flies. Head on. The Earth Racing Team is a team that has just been built, but has a popularity of 20,000 people. However, the Lokafu Racing Team and Solon Racing Team that joined later did not join willingly, and even had a hatred towards this team. After all, they were conquered by force. Listen carefully, these materials are what the assassin wants to sell. How can you not sell them even if you say you won't? If you have the ability, just tell the assassin face to face. If you don't have the ability, work quickly. Allos was extremely powerful now. Under his command, two behemoths in front of him that seemed to be more than 3 meters tall gritted their teeth angrily. One wanted to make a fist, but the other suddenly pulled back his body. These two monsters are not afraid of Allos, who does not look so powerful in front of them, but are frightened by the assassin behind Allos. Looking at the two monsters carrying the goods unwillingly, Allos felt even more confident in his heart that he was in control of a large convoy. This big frog has always known the extent of his abilities. Although he had controlled more than 10,000 people in the previous Olux racing team, he could not manage so many people at all. Fortunately, he has a good reputation. That's why there have always been people who helped maintain that team. But compared to now, Allos at that time was obviously a small team. Unfortunately, sir, you are exaggerating. You actually want a spacecraft, and you also say that the more advanced the better, such a thing. How could I possibly do it? Just deal with him casually in a few days. If I mention to those forces that I want this thing, they will laugh me to death. Thinking of this, Allos Frog also had a wry smile on his face. It's not that he doesn't want to do things for Jia Yan, but that Jia Yan's request is too exaggerated. Even if there is an offer for this thing, It cannot be affordable. Boom boom boom. Just when these busy life forms gradually calmed down from their busyness, a roaring sound flew past their heads. What? Alois was shocked. But when he looked up, he could no longer see anything in the night sky. It must be Master Assassin, he is out wandering again. The only living thing that is so fast is the giant mosquito. The living creatures here are also used to the big mosquitoes often going out like this, so after being surprised for a moment, they just gave up waiting and watching. The being that flew away was naturally Jia Yan. But what they didn't expect was that this time Jia Yan didn't just go out casually and wander around outside. Instead, not far from the convoy, there was a life form that had arrived during the survey. It was standing proudly here, as if waiting for Jia Yan. The yellow sand in the sky is not so eye-catching in the night, but at this time, there is a trace of cold air, exuding in the endless desert. There are no lights here, but neither side seemed to be affected by the light. Jia Yan's huge flying figure arrived here. One is flying in the sky and the other is waiting on the ground. The streamlined body of the giant mosquito has excellent beauty, and it is also a scientific existence that is very consistent with biology. Moreover, his long legs, with their charming lines, also have a chilling air that spreads in the air, surprising the life forms below. While the other party was observing Jia Yan was also observing the approaching monster. This is a creature with a round back and 6 arms and legs. The upper part of its body is raised up, and the front 2 hands hold 2 big hammer-like weapons, and it has very advanced technology and equipment. Monster. If I had to describe it, it would look like a mutated turtle. But Jia Yan looked at it for a long time, and there was a look of gasping in his compound eyes. What a strong guy! Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 430. Please subscribe. The brainwave power detection, feedback of the strong muscles of the opponent's body, and the strong resistance of the brainwave power all show that this monster with a hard shell on its back has unparalleled strength. But when Jia Yan was exploring the other party, the turtle-like life form had a gloomy feeling. Dear sir, don't you think it is very unfriendly to use your brainwave power to look at a strange being so directly? Can he detect my brainwave power? Jia Yan was slightly startled, and immediately knew that this monster might be a different type from the monsters he had encountered before. Of course, maybe he is not necessarily stronger than that white life form, but compared to that white life form, he seems to have a slightly different feeling in terms of brainwave power, as if this monster is majoring in brainwave power. Therefore, the brainwave power seems to be much stronger than that of the white life form. Jia Yan, who had fully recovered his energy, although he was not afraid, still calmly withdrew his brainwave power. Neither humble nor arrogant, just politely withdrawing strength. This is my mistake. Please forgive me. It's just that you came uninvited. As the leader of this motorcade, I will naturally be on guard. I wonder who you are. After Jia Yan thought for a while, he continued to use his own words. The voice that was neither humble nor arrogant expressed doubts. After all, he had not heard of the existence of this strong man at this time. Naturally, he had not provoked any strong people from the Golden Desert. He could not think of any reason for the sudden appearance of the other party. Not long after, Jia Yan's mind was running wildly, and he immediately thought of an existence, that is, the 5th strong man who was defeated by him, Long Wu. This guy seemed to have the possibility of provoking other strong men. Haha, Your Excellency said that I came uninvited. In fact, I should return this sentence to you directly. As a strong man in this Golden Desert, we don't seem to invite you. Why do you come uninvited? The turtle-like life form stood on the ground, using extremely powerful brainwave power. The sound is directly transmitted to Jia Yan's tentacled ears, which shows its powerful brainwave power at the same time. It also revealed that compared to Jia Yan's superficial brainwave power control method, his brainwave power control method is definitely more powerful. I came uninvited. Jia Yan was startled. After that, I immediately understood the other party's intention. Obviously, in this golden desert, it also has a dominant force, or is an alliance-like existence, and the monster in front of you is obviously a member of it. And he, a living being on Earth who doesn't understand any rules. He rashly broke into their territory and started so many battles. Naturally, it will cause dissatisfaction on the other side. Thinking of this, Jia Yan also sneered. He didn't know the other party's real purpose here, but if it was to drive him away, or if you want to kill him, then he can't just sit back and wait for humiliation. Just fight. Thinking of this, the faint murderous intention in Jia Yan's heart emerged. In everything on this planet, Jia Yan has discovered that compared to the Earth, the strong is supreme. After all, as a lawless and warring planet, even the government officials are just some sneaky people in name only. Other forces and the characters, where might there be any ideas like morality? The strong is supreme, this is the rule of this planet. This monster is strong, but Jia Yan is absolutely sure of his own strength. Oh, it seems that, sir, you don't know the rules of our place. Are you a strong man who has just arrived on this planet? We, Jin Mo, are truly honored to be favored by such a powerful being like you. The monster with the tortoise shell was talking eloquently, and it seemed that it was half a compliment to Jia Yan, and half a warning. But for such a powerful being like you, when you come to a place like ours, you still need to say hello. After all, every place has its own rules, and you wantonly invade the territory of other forces. Such a thing, we have the right to manage. The turtle shell life form stood on the ground, looked at Jia Yan and said lightly. Then tell me, what should I do? Jia Yan snorted coldly in his heart, and then asked in an indifferent voice without any retreat. What should I do? The turtle monster lowered his head and looked at his palms. These palms held a pair of weapons similar to big hammers. From Jia Yan's perspective, those weapons were still a great threat. The monster looked at it at this time. Weapons, obviously, also have the idea of handling them. But within a moment, the monster still shook his head. I can feel that your strength is very strong. If you use force now, you should not be able to make you submit. But you have to believe that I am not the most powerful being in our organization, and you can't follow us all. Organize a confrontation, so if you really apologize sincerely, please withdraw from our Jin Mo. After all, your existence has seriously affected the balance of power in our Jin Mo. Hearing the other party's direct assertion that he was very powerful, Jia Yan was a little surprised. This monster obviously judged his strength through the power of brain waves, but he didn't know whether the other party was really impressed by his own strength. Shocked, is it just an excuse? However, I want to withdraw from Jinmo by myself. Even though Jia Yan was extremely afraid of their strength in this matter, he couldn't give up easily. After all, this was a backup that he had controlled for a short period of time, and he also wanted to get some resources as soon as possible to further mutate. Even by controlling a larger territory, squeezing out some of Jinmo's power, he purchased an aircraft capable of true space navigation. How could you give up? Okay. It's impossible for me to withdraw from Jin Mo. Why do I want to quit just because I show sincerity? If I say that you must also show sincerity and give me half of Jinmo's territory, will you agree? There was a faint light in Jia Yanfu's eyes, and he said coldly in the air. In the cold night, a cold wind was blowing. The sound of campfires in the distant Earth convoy seemed to be louder, but in this place, the chill that penetrated the heart suddenly increased. The battle seems to be about to break out. But facing Jia Yan's pressure, the turtle shell-like life form. But his expression changed slightly. He also sneered. He surprisingly didn't take action after that. I am just here as an envoy to meet with you today. Since you are unwilling to accept our goodwill, then I will have to see you next time. Say it. The monster floated up lightly, and then calmly used its tomb-like eyes. He looked at Jia Yan. These eyes have changed from the brown color before to a red blood color, full of murderous intent. Jia Yan didn't show any emotion at this time. Looked directly at the other person. It didn't contain any suppressed killing intent, and it also glanced at the other party with an extremely cold look. A monster wearing a turtle shell. At this moment, it suddenly turned into a black lightning, and the electricity shot into the distance. Even if it is not a flying monster, its flying speed at this time, it actually exceeds the speed of sound on the Earth by 7 or 8 times, which is simply terrifying. Just leaving like that? But this Jin Mo is actually controlled by a big force. From now on, Jia Yan looked at the other party's leaving figure and saw the other party's speed. Even though his flying speed often reaches more than 10 times, his compound eyes shrink slightly. You must know that the opponent is not a flying monster. It is simply unbelievable to reach such a speed by relying solely on the power of brain waves. Of course, what makes Jia Yan even more annoyed is that this life form has a warning for him. This Jin Mo actually has a powerful super force. This has not been shown in the information Jia Yan has learned before. This directly caught Jia Yan off guard. But it is normal to think about it. After all, this Jin Mo has so many forces. It is actually very abnormal for them to maintain such a peaceful state now. If there is not a super huge force behind it, it would be impossible to think about it. It is impossible to keep a place like Jinmo like it is now. So what should I do? The turtle shell monster reached the distant horizon in the blink of an eye. Jia Yan kept watching him leave, and then thought to himself with a headache. After a moment, there was a strange luster in his eyes. It seems that something has been decided. A strange black behemoth is moving quickly in the sky. Not long after, the monster gradually slowed down, and then looked back with an extremely fearful look on its face. He didn't see anything chasing him coming, and then he let out a sigh of relief. He continued flying forward for a while. After about dozens of kilometers, we reached a basin composed of several sand dunes. Long Wu. What information did you give me? When the turtle shell arrived here, it directly used its brainwave power to stir up the yellow sand in the sky, causing the sand dunes below to collapse almost instantly, forming a huge sandstorm. What happened? In the sand dunes, a huge shadow suddenly appeared, as if it had been awakened, looking sleepy. This is an indescribably huge giant. This giant has 2 pairs of eyes on the front and back. Other than that, it looks like an enlarged Asta man, with a humanized appearance. He has unparalleled momentum, and he has a metal weapon in his hand that looks very simple, but actually has very high-tech elements. It looks like a boomerang on the earth. Of course, the size of this boomerang is definitely larger than that of a boomerang. The boomerang on the earth is many times bigger. This monster giant had obviously been sleeping peacefully under several sand dunes before. When he was suddenly awakened, he was naturally extremely frightened and furious. But when he saw the turtle shell monster in front of him, the expression on his face immediately changed. It's like a mouse meets a cat. It turns out to be Mr. Kaki. I wonder what happened if you come back. I can tell you everything about that monster, he said calmly. The giant who was so angry just now actually softened his face, and his anger naturally disappeared. What information do you have? You said that you can fight him equally, and even risk your life, but you can still inflict some injuries on him. But I just went over, and how did that monster look like you said? You can tell me, can you really fight to a draw with him, only to be slightly at a disadvantage? The turtle shell monster held the sledgehammer in his hand, as if this huge giant would strike down if he deceived him. Let him die immediately. The giant was startled. Then came the surprised Tao. Yes, his strength a few days ago is not much different from mine. If I really fight to the death, I really don't know who will win and who will lose. Otherwise, I can't escape, right? Is it possible? Sir, do you think he is very powerful? Useless trash. It seems that guy concealed his strength when he fought with you. With his current strength, even I am not sure I can deal with him. The turtle shell monster looked at the big giant's unfaithful expression, and suddenly waved his hand in depression. Another electric shot left this desert area. That's not right. I don't think that guy was hiding his strength a few days ago. The giant kept mumbling to himself in the desolate desert night scene. I don't care about him, I lost anyway. No matter if he is strong or not, we will see you later. Just run as far as you can, but will he still kill them all? Sleep, sleep, thinking of this giant lie on your side. He fell down in the desert again, and kept digging the sand around him with his hands, covering his body. Not long after, a few lonely sand dunes appeared in this place, and the giant seemed to disappear. Jia Yan returned to Huangzhou alone. During this period, some people saw him, but no one asked him where he was. It seemed that everyone in this place under his control was isolated. The members of these convoys gathered together in one place. In various places, some formed small gangs composed of original members of Alus, and some formed small gangs mainly composed of members of the Lokafu team. However, the Solin team, which had no organizational mentality in the first place, dispersed and became the power of each strong person. After all, it is a large organization with tens of thousands of people. At this time, each of them has their own alignment and distinction. Jia Yan couldn't stop it, nor did he want to stop it from happening. He watched everything here with cold eyes. He returned to the top of his tall tree canopy. At this time, the big Mosquito had established an absolute supreme position in the power of the convoy. Although there were countless mountains in the convoy, no living body dared to use his black hands. Reaching under the body of Jia Yan, the supreme powerhouse. Jia Yan looked at the huge convoy of lights in front of him in the dark night. Some of the building bodies had given up their attack mode, and the body panels stretched out. Their originally huge vehicle soon it expanded several times, and after standing upside down, it directly became houses dozens of meters high. These houses turned this motorcade camp into a city. In just a few days, the roads between the houses were pressed out by busy departments with their big feet and wheels. The smooth roads and streets seemed to have taken shape. These car bodies belonged to one or more people in the team. After Jia Yan controlled these life forms one by one, he did not force this change. So at this time, everyone in the personal fleet is either going to a habitable house to look for a room that is livable and has cheap rent. There were also some people who participated in the tasks assigned by Jia Yan at this time, and their reward was naturally part of the money and items captured by Jia Yan. Others took out their own supplies and set up small stalls near their chariots to sell. Even some tanks have been turned into storefronts and started selling. Isn't this a town? Jia Yan looked down, and there were all kinds of life forms there. Although there were only 20,000 people, these 20,000 people made Jia Yan feel the vivid feeling of alien life forms. If there is a battle with those powerful beings, these life forms may also cause casualties. What echoed in Jia Yan's mind was the image of the little girl Lulu helping him wipe his body with a pitiful smile. That's all, if there really is a fight, then I'd better take care of them and try not to cause too many casualties to them due to the impact of the battle. Jia Yan turned over and lay there slowly, looking at the scene of a neon city gradually appearing below. At this moment, he felt lonely again. Daphne's delicate face was full of grievance and frown. She is angry, she is sad. This red-haired woman, has been at the so-called Imperial contact point for several days, but there is still no response from the upper echelons of the Empire. Every time I go to urge him, I can only get the other side to say that I am waiting for the result. You know, a few days on this planet is more than a month on Earth. How could this not make Daphne furious? That is an evolved beast that has the potential to evolve into a starry sky beast, and a gravitational wave theory that can change the Empire. For such a big thing, the Empire still didn't respond at all. Daphne only felt that her patience was slowly being worn away while waiting, and all that was left was anger. Dear Miss Daphne, no. Or should I say, Grandma? Haha, we have reported your matter to the authorities, but there is no response from the authorities. It is not our fault. Don't worry, there will be a response soon. A man from the Empire who looked very similar to the Earthlings couldn't help but yawned and said with droopy eyelids when he saw Daphne coming again. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 431. You said the same thing last time I came here, but after so many days, you still say the same thing. Have you reported what I said? Now I seriously doubt your efficiency. Daphne's pink hair was shaking in anger. If someone from Osto or Earth were here, they would definitely feel a strange attraction because of the beautiful and heroic spirit shown in this woman's anger. However, Daphne was only facing an emperor with a different aesthetic sense, that is, a person from Ruland civilization. He was not moved at all by the charm shown by Daphne, but raised his eyelids slightly. Because of Daphne's words, his anger also increased. Miss Daphne. Are you doubting me? Don't forget who you are. Cyborg. Do you understand cyborg? It's just a toy created by our Empire people hundreds of years ago. What do you think? Do people really believe what I say? What happened in the biochemical kingdom happened more than 200 years ago. Do you think that the Empire will not respond to what a biochemical person said after verifying it? God knows, is your toy from the biochemical kingdom? Spy. The imperial official spat out a series of words, and Daphne's face became a little ugly with each sentence. At this time, how could she, who was so smart, not know why the Empire was unable to respond to her message? The reason lies in her identity as a cyborg. Daphne smiled bitterly. She didn't expect that her identity would be in such a situation today. Even if she handed over such useful information, she still couldn't make the Empire look at her differently, and even doubted the authenticity of the information. That's right. Daphne is actually a biochemical human developed using technology from the former Ruland civilization. This kind of existence was extremely popular in the Ruland civilization more than 300 years ago. Not only Ruland civilization, but also the interstellar civilizations at that time, when similar technologies were spreading wildly. Each and every one of them enjoys using the cyborgs for their own pleasure. Most intelligent civilizations believe that cyborgs can alleviate their work and make their lives easier. Daphne is the product of the cyborgs that flourished for a while. But what Daphne didn't know before was that after she became a representative on the Earth, many civilized people are beginning to be dissatisfied with biochemical humans just helping them take care of their lives and work. They started to want to take advantage of some technology, develop more powerful biological beasts and conquer cities and territories for them. Subsequent facts proved that these interstellar civilizations were all wrong. Those biochemical beasts developed by various civilizations, as well as those so-called biochemical people, I don't know when they started to gather. In just a few decades, it has developed from a small uninhabited planet in the middle of a war, even swallowing up an interstellar civilization with a high level of civilization entirely. The biochemical empire was born. They even made friends with the Zergs who appeared out of nowhere. Use some of the Zergs' technologies to destroy all the means used by each civilization to control them. This beast has no chains. Like hungry gluttons, under the banner of revenge, they teamed up with the Zerg and almost completely swallowed up a large swath of the starry sky in just 100 years. Fortunately, these monsters come from various civilizations, and their weaknesses are also extremely obvious to each civilization. They have only been wreaking havoc for a short period of 100 years, and those interstellar civilizations can develop to such an extent that they cannot be created by themselves. The species that emerge can be easily destroyed. In the following period, the war entered a tug-of-war situation, which is what Jia Yan and the others now see, a scenery similar to the gray-yellow star. Although the biochemical empire can only rely on the force of the Zerg to gain a foothold in various battlefields, their strength cannot be defeated by interstellar civilizations in a short period of time. And as a cyborg of unknown origin until now, how could Daphne be valued by the above? Thinking of the recent information she had learned, Daphne's mouth became bitter and her face was filled with sadness. She wondered if her return was a mistake. If she had not come to this planet, then on Earth, although she might still live the kind of life where she fantasizes about the life of the Empire every day, she would still be hopeful and full of hope at that time, at least it would not change. To be like this now, defeated by reality. People in the Empire are not like those film and television materials. Each one has profound connotations, and not everyone is perfect. Isn't this just like the people on Earth? Under the mocking gaze of the imperial official, Daphne slowly walked out of his office. She stared blankly at the scenery around her. The living beings coming and going all had faces that looked like people from Osta, not the Empire people she imagined. On this planet, although this place is the general headquarters of the Rulan Empire, they are still like underground workers, they dare not expose this place easily, at least they do not appear openly in the sun, they can only disguise themselves as OS. Trust people and carry out activities secretly. But even though her appearance was similar to her current appearance, the expressions of the staff walking around when looking at Delphine still showed a hint of caution and ridicule. Daphne suddenly felt that she had never been so close to this empire. She is just a cyborg, and the other person is the superior empire in the movies and TV shows. Daphne hid in her house for a long time. Outside this room, there is a female guard, who is said to be there to protect her, but Daphne knows that this is simply surveillance. Finally, at an unknown moment, the door of the room she was in gently opened. "Miss Daphne, do you want to go out?" Looking at Daphne's alluring attire, the female guard frowned and asked lightly. "Yes, I want to go out." Daphne glanced at the other party, and then said in a tone that seemed to have made some kind of decision. "But..." The female soldier was about to say something, but she suddenly felt that there was an unparalleled brainwave power in her head, coming fiercely. Bang! She fell gently to the ground. Haha, I probably have subconscious concerns about this for a long time, so until now, the Empire doesn't know that I have cultivated powerful brainwave power for 300 years. Daphne held onto her hand. Female soldier. Then he smiled bitterly and helped him into his house. Daphne is indeed very thoughtful. Maybe after learning about the affairs of the biochemical kingdom in the past, she secretly kept something secret. He did not expose his true strength to the imperial institutions. At this time, he suddenly used his strength. No one can guard against it. Daphne adjusted her clothes, and then walked to the side without looking out of place at all. Besides the fact that the Empire doesn't know about my brainwave strength, there's another thing they don't know about, and that's my hacking skills. Now the general surveillance of this institution has been controlled by me. Daphne's charming red eyes flashed with a charming luster that was mixed with danger. Giggle. The old lady who has lived for 300 years is not as simple as you think. The woman walked forward. A smile appeared on his face. That day, a big scandal occurred at the Rulan Empire's headquarters on the Grey Star. A cyborg from the UN Rulan Empire whose actions are being monitored. He actually escaped from the Rulan Empire headquarters under strict protection. He even stole a set of individual equipment that can only be equipped by the frontline troops of the Rulan Empire now. Lost together was the gravitational wave test data that the woman, together with several scientific researchers from the headquarters, studied for several days. At the same time, the information in the headquarters was also directly erased by this woman. Don't you believe me? Then I will help you eliminate the things I sent. This is what Delphine thinks. It can be said to be very heartless. This move can be said to be a big slap in the face to the Rulan Empire's headquarters on the Grey-Yellow Star, which was lax on guard. The most depressing thing for the headquarters officials was this. The escaping woman had not been gone for long, and before he could catch up with the report, an urgent report was delivered from the capital of the Rulan Empire, Rulan. The information clearly stated that the woman was immediately and safely sent to the capital star, and all previous research information was sealed. The scientific researchers at that time were also sent to the capital star. Other personnel were all silent and could not disclose the previous research information. Exposed at all. Seeing this order, the headquarters officials were really on the verge of tears. If this news had arrived earlier, the current situation might not be like this. Leaving aside the additional manpower search here, it is just that Delphine became a little overwhelmed after leaving the headquarters of the Empire. This woman was walking on the streets of the sixth city. She was in an area with a large number of people in Osto. She covered her head with the big hood that was inside the headquarters, with a blank expression on her face. Although she had been so heartless before, the feeling that her hope and sustenance for the past 300 years had completely collapsed in the past few days was unbearable. Although she had lost all her personal equipment, she still felt, "I feel lonely and weak." According to our news, the diplomat of the biochemical nation who visited the city before recently visited the neighbor of city number 6, city number 5. The diplomat once answered the reporter's question and said that he would not cause problems like this in the city. Misunderstood, they will abide by the Peace City regulations signed 230 years ago and do their best for the peaceful and sustainable development of the Grey Star. The following is the report sent back by our reporter on the spot. An advertising message played on the roadside attracted Delphine's attention. Later, when this woman saw the white life form appearing on the holographic TV screen, her eyes that were originally lifeless suddenly became filled with vitality. By the way, I can go back to Earth with him. Thinking of this woman suddenly felt that the place where she grew up, the blue planet, the planet that had dominated the world for 300 years, was her hometown. Empires are the most beautiful in dreams, but the real empire is completely messy. That white life form has been following the footsteps of the big Mosquito before. Now that she has arrived in city number 5, maybe the big Mosquito is also nearby. Go and take a look. Thinking of this, the woman's steps became firmer. Toward the edge of the city. Go quickly. Jia Yan could not have imagined that the woman he thought would have a bad effect on him would actually change like this at this time. He had too many headaches. Didn't think that far ahead at all. After a few days of busy work, the Earth convoy officially settled in Huangzhou. Those huge non-combat vehicles spread out one by one and turned into buildings. A boomtown. Built up near and within Huangzhou. All this happened in just a few days. Converted to Earth time, it only takes less than a month, so efficient. Jia Yan couldn't believe it. Fortunately, he had a group of men to advise him. In order not to expose himself, Jia Yan not only was not a living being on this planet. Even interstellar civilization creatures are not like this. He tries not to participate in those constructions. After all, he is professional about those things. If you don't know, it's more likely that your subordinates will suspect that their leader may be a monster from a wild planet. You know, if someone knows this, it may be a bigger problem. Fortunately, Jia Yan concealed it very well. He thought he was pretending to be indifferent, but in fact he forgot that his character was really so indifferent after his rebirth. In addition to being more enthusiastic about his family, he also treated many things. He was extremely indifferent. With this layer of indifference as a protection, those life forms would not come to trouble Jia Yan unless something big happened, so that while he was trying to absorb civilized knowledge, he did not reveal his identity. The development of a large convoy of 20,000 people is not that easy. Originally, Jia Yan wanted to rely on attack as a main means of expansion, but the appearance of the turtle shell life form made him a little afraid. The convoy had to be ordered to stop stimulating the opponent. There are several ways to think about it now. The first one is to continue what these teams have done in the past, which is to go to the edge of the forest and plant those poisons. However, the benefits of this method are too small. The second method is, regardless of the threat of that life form, continue to attack other forces, or at worst, fight them when the time comes. Jia Yan had a headache. He originally thought that he could flex his muscles in this golden desert, but there was a superpower restricting him. He even thought that behind this power, there was definitely a civilization that controlled everything. If we really fight against this force, even if we really have the upper hand, if the civilization behind them appears, then it will be absolutely impossible for him, a single-handed Mosquito, to be able to deal with it. There is a third option. Jia Yanfu's eyes were sparkling. Then the team will do everything it can to provide me with mutated energy, even if it costs everything. If I can mutate again. Jia Yan couldn't help but feel excited when he thought about how powerful he could become with each mutation. Although the three convoys can sell a lot of things together, under normal circumstances, they may not necessarily be able to obtain the materials Jia Yan needs to mutate again. But don't forget those treasures that Jia Yan has been hiding under his wings. Among them, there are not only many large and small star condensates, but also the treasures handed over by Daphne, and the star mithril finally obtained in the gravitational wave. There are these treasures that attract his desire to devour them all the time. As long as they are matched with certain materials, it is not impossible to undergo the next mutation. Because I lost energy before and my body dried up, the internal organs and some subtle organ structures of the body have reached a stable period. Even the new organs that were not grown scientifically due to mutations have adapted and adjusted. Now I definitely have the potential to mutate again. 3 options, my choices. Jia Yan thought for a moment and looked at the alien life forms below. He knew that if he decided on the third option, those life forms would definitely have a very difficult time. However, does the hardship of these life forms have anything to do with him? Of course my own strength comes first. There is no doubt. I choose the third option. I will mutate and become stronger again. His compound eyes spurted out a stream of fire. In recent days, he was almost unstoppable on the earth. He was so powerful that he was invincible. A series of things on this gray-yellow star were quite depressing, so he was depressed and I want to roar, but I don't have the strength to roar. I can't roar. To continue to be strong. As long as he continues to be strong, one day, when he roars, he will come to Shiyuan Wanchao to worship. No one dares to disobey his orders. Jia Yan chose the third option without any sympathy. Oh Lux! Come here. In the distance, Aluz, who was busy arranging more and more complicated things, suddenly heard the voice of Jia Yan's brainwave power that passed through the heavy air and reached his ears. Yes, Aluz immediately responded, regardless of the matter at hand. Although he doesn't know what happened to the assassin, everything he has is a gift from the assassin. If he puts the cart before the horse, then he is a fool. So no matter how big things are at hand, they still have to be put aside. A moment later, at the bottom of the tree canopy where the huge flying life was crawling, Aluz's horrified voice sounded involuntarily. What? Sir, you want to confiscate most of the belongings in the convoy in exchange for what you need? Aluz's frog eyes widened in disbelief. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 432. Thanks to brother, come and take a look 131-4159 for the 1888 reward again, as well as other brothers for the reward, thank you. Also, please ask for a genuine subscription. Jia Yan is an extremely powerful being to many people, but this does not mean that Jia Yan is a leader who can make them willing to give everything and sincerely for him. In the past, Big Mosquito was because he did not directly kill and seize the property of the life forms in the convoy under his command, so that those life forms did not have any complaints about Big Mosquito's rule. But if the Big Mosquito deprives those subordinates of their property at this time, then for this convoy, it will be like a natural disaster caused by alienation. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. Just go ahead and give the order. If anyone doesn't comply, expel or kill them, it's up to you. Jia Yan made his own voice and said lightly. But sir, this is not good for the development of the convoy, nor is it bad for the development of our Earth army, Alus quickly shouted in front of Jia Yan. For this big frog, this has never been the case. It was something that had never happened before, which showed how excited he was at this time. You execute it for me, or, I kill you and find someone else to execute it. Do you understand what I mean? Suddenly, Jia Yan's voice using the power of brainwaves vibrated. The originally beautiful male voice continued to reverberate in the air, making Alus's bloated and fat frog body involuntarily take several steps back. His voice was undeniably cold, and he was ruthless in showing no regard for those living things. This made Ulus think that the mosquito was not that kind of tyrant for several days, and this completely changed his mind. It's not that he is not a tyrant, nor is he a tyrant in the true sense. The assassin is just a being who must get what he wants. Alus lowered his body dejectedly, and finally accepted the order helplessly. Yes. I understand. Let's make arrangements now. It's just my lord, there may be some noise during this period. I hope your lord can compare the situation when I'm in danger, you can help me. I know, if you can't face the situation, I will take action. Jia Yan just crawled on the top of the tall tree canopy, still looking at the endless urban scene below. I don't know the scenery below, after all this trouble. How depressed will it become? How much will the number of life forms below decrease? Olux didn't know when he left. Jia Yan was still looking at the scenery below, as if he wanted to completely absorb the scenery below into his huge compound eyes. Everything is for your own variation. Everything is for your own strength. Alus's action efficiency is not slow, which may be a spirit unique to desert life. Not long after Jia Yan crawled on the top of the tree canopy, he saw groups of life-form soldiers running towards the surrounding chariot buildings. Jia Yan knows. Even these life forms that maintain law and order are just following the trend and temporarily taking refuge in the name of Alus. They may rebel at any time, or in other words, no one in this convoy is impossible to rebel. The system was established under the threat of Jia Yan's powerful force. It was as fragile as a small sailboat in the sea, in danger of capsizing at any time. No, this is my old partner who has been with me for more than 20 years. No matter how much you promise, it's useless. I won't allow you to take it away. As long as you do a good job, it doesn't matter if I lose everything. Just let me keep the car. Master Assassin, please do a good job. When Jia Yan saw the people in the convoy, everyone screamed in terror, and then some of the life forms shouted loudly in the direction of Jia Yan. Jia Yan was unmoved. In fact, what he asked for was not a lot. After several days of investigation, it was found that many team life forms have a certain net worth, especially those from Solon team and Lokafu team. Even ordinary members may have a net worth of not much worse than a poor team leader like Ulus. After some rough calculations, he found that the task list given to Alus was actually not very demanding, just half the net worth of some living beings. Of course, there must be many of them that cannot be taken out, but that is another level of things. Those beings will be forced to become the labor force of this team and work for the team for free for a period of time. The collection work below is proceeding very slowly, and there is even some resistance. However, those resistances are just small things that cannot make waves. Most of them don't need Jia Yan's action. Those who need Jia Yan's action are basically some powerful life forms from Solin's team. With Jia Yan's intervention, the process of confiscation naturally became smoother. At this time, the convoy, which was originally a little calm, became more panicked. Jia Yan also accommodatingly let some of the confiscated property go. Of course, there are more living beings, because after their property was confiscated, they did not even have the ability to leave. After losing their car and most of their property, they were left with no other ending than death in the vast desert. Aluz's speed of action was not slow. The armed force of about 1,000 people he developed was of great use at this time. Under the leadership of these 1,000 people, it was almost impossible for the entire convoy to appear. Rival forces appeared, and even if they did, they would not be able to confront Jia Yan. Therefore, under the leadership of these 1,000 armed men, the work of hands and feet has been progressing smoothly. Sir, Your Majesty, the property you requested has been collected. Can we just exchange it for the corresponding things according to the list you mentioned? Aluz crouched in front of the big mosquito. He didn't know when to start. This is what he looked like when talking to Jia Yan. Jia Yan looked at the big frog lying on the ground, trembling and talking to him, with an inexplicable light shining in his compound eyes. Then he made a satisfied voice and said, "Yes, you can negotiate with those businessmen and forces according to the proportion I mentioned. The specific amount of benefits you can obtain depends on your ability. If you can do it this time to my satisfaction, I will officially give you the status you want in the team." "Thank you, Lord Assassin." Upon hearing this, Aluz was so surprised that he lowered his body repeatedly to express his gratitude. "But," Jia Yan continued with a touch of ruthlessness, "remember, who gave you everything you have. Don't do anything to feel sorry for me. If you do, don't blame me. No mercy." Jia Yan's words made Aluz's sweat drop. He quickly said yes. Because of his growing power in the past few days, this guy has handled a lot of money. So when I seized those things, I couldn't help but take possession of one or two things I liked. As a result, when he arrived at Jia Yan, he was immediately seen through. Jia Yan's power, as well as his elusiveness, this big frog has always had a feeling of being unable to see through, and now the big mosquito is saying words of encouragement so ambiguously. The big frog who felt guilty was simply overthinking. While thinking in the bottom of my heart, I immediately put the things back in the inventory. He responded quickly with respect in his mouth. Aluz left the giant tree where Jia Yan was. Jia Yan was still looking at the motorcade in the distance, but it was less than 3 days on this planet, which was a little more than one planet on Earth. What was once a small city with flashing neon lights has now become withered. The yellow sand is slowly sweeping in the gentle breeze in the desert, giving the city that has lost many standing houses a slight sense of depression. Several alien children were running on the street, and Jia Yan saw Lulu's figure there. Some of the clothes she wore before seemed to be missing. Now she was just wearing a tattered, ill-fitting children's clothes, playing there with a few alien children. Jia Yan's heart suddenly trembled. He knew what he had done. Lulu was a unique individual. Aluz came over to ask about it some time ago. Jia Yan's reply was that it was okay to follow other people's standards. Unexpectedly, they would even take away Lulu's clothes and sell them. He stopped looking over there. The little girl with bunny ears, and the little aliens around her, smiled happily there. In his opinion, it is more of a mockery. There is nothing wrong with me doing this. They paid a lot, and they can pay back double or even more in the future at worst. Jia Yan explained this to himself. As for whether he will actually do this in the future, Jia Yan himself has no confidence at all. I have read in the books sent by Allos that the evolved beasts are greedy life forms. Although they are powerful, they are a danger to all civilizations because they are all greedy individuals. Yes, we will do anything for our own evolution. Am I still like this now? Jia Yan smiled bitterly. The fleet in Huangzhou suddenly fell into silence. The difference was that the vehicles that came to buy goods and exchange property never stopped. And this convoy, which is said to have come with a very powerful life form, has made the surrounding forces vigilant and alert because of its previous battles. However, judging from its performance in recent days, this Earth convoy seems to have entered during the stable period. At this time, none of them had many offensive ideas. Instead, they were selling iron within themselves in exchange for a large amount of funds. Many leaders of the surrounding forces speculated that this so-called leader of the Earth convoy should be the kind of guy who came here to make a lot of money and then left. They did not see that he directly sold many of the convoys that the convoy relied on for survival at this time. Even some powerful weapons were sold, which made the forces who came to pick up second-hand goods extremely jealous. Some of the items from the original Solon fleet were not necessarily bought by anyone with money in this golden desert. Owned. These things sell a lot of money, and at the same time, such a practice of killing the goose to obtain the eggs also makes those beings feel at ease. If the other party is just a strong man who comes here, makes a fortune and leaves, they only need to try their best to. If you hide for a while, you can avoid the other party's robbery. With Jia Yan's performance like this, it's not just the weak forces that feel reassured. Some powerful forces, including the super forces that came to threaten them a few days ago, were also the ones who originally wanted to launch an offensive after seeing Jia Yan's style. There is a stagnation. They knew that it was easier to invite the gods than to send them away. It turned out that because they misjudged the combat power of this flying monster, there was a huge internal disagreement, that is, whether to fight or not to fight. But they didn't expect that before they could figure out the reason, Jia Yan's actions would defeat the superpower. Immediately there was a unified argument, that is, observe and see. It would be best if this powerful monster could leave on its own. There was even a proposal from this force to give the address of the strong flying man to the man flying around in the desert. The group of diplomats who were looking for traces of the big mosquito, but because of Jia Yan's behavior, they seemed to be leaving. This made them pause for a moment. After all, if the other party gave them face and left, they wouldn't have to continue to offend. Just as the days passed slowly. 2 days passed again. 2 days on this planet is another week or so on Earth. On this day, basically everything Jia Yan collected was in place. Because it was sold at a low price, the supplies were more than he expected. It's missing a bit. But it's definitely enough. Earth convoy. Now this convoy is suddenly under high-pressure control. Allos began to frantically absorb the members of the convoy, those life forms that could not leave the convoy and could not escape. In desperation, only one by one joined. More than 2,000 soldiers turned into small teams, patrolling the streets all day long. Ordinary life forms in the motorcade no longer dare to go out. The originally prosperous convoy town suddenly became lifeless. Some living beings who were executed or captured for various crimes were escorted from time to time towards the prison in the convoy. They will be tried there, and then convicted, whether to be killed, or to receive a certain period of re-education through labor. The wind and sand are getting stronger and stronger. It is said that a sandstorm will come in the Golden Desert in the next few days. It will be a dusty day that lasts for several days or even 10 days. But the sandstorm on the Earth's convoy seems to have arrived a few days ago. The people here have no passion for work, and there is no work for them. They are just forced to stay at home. Or arrange some work that does not bring any profit to the team, and pass the time indifferently. This convoy is finished. Many living beings say this in private. If possible, they will definitely escape here, either to join other forces, or to find a way to live in an official city. Even in a poor outer city, it is better than living in this high-pressure place. This team, which had barely gotten together, became disunity. But Jia Yan didn't have any bad thoughts. Even if Alus tried his best to suppress his timidity once or twice, he gave him advice and suggested 1 or 2 ways to revitalize the team, but Jia Yan was completely unmoved. What he wants is not a powerful motorcade. What he wants is his own strength. This Earth convoy. It's just a whim. At this time, Jia Yan finally flew down from the tree crown where he liked to crawl. As the absolute uncrowned king of this convoy, when he came to the ground, many of the patrolling soldiers imitated the big frog monster of Alus and crawled down when it passed by. Jia Yan just glanced at them lightly. In fact, many things in this convoy were made by Alus. Even the current patrol is just a team created by the big frog in his name. Even because of this, Jia Yan, without reaching out to these soldiers, a lot of supplies were lacking. He ignored the existence of these convoys, but walked towards a huge convoy building ahead. "Sir, these are the supplies we are looking for." Alus had been waiting in front of the building early. When Jia Yan arrived, he suddenly ordered someone to open the door of the building. The metallic luster and the luster of various things made Jia Yan's eyes flash for a moment. It turns out that inside the building, there is actually a small hill that is at least tens of meters in size. This hill is made entirely of materials. Among them are 200 bottles of low-level nutrient solution, 20 bottles of mid-level nutrient solution, 1 ton each of 10 top-level tank metals, and some energy materials you pointed out. The total value exceeds that of our gray and yellow star funding exceeds 200 million. Is 200 million gray-yellow stars a lot of money? In fact, it is not much. A rich man with a gray star may have a net worth of more than 10 billion, but 200 million is definitely an extremely large amount for a team at the bottom. More than half of these 200 million, it was the Earth team that collected the inventory of Thorin's team and managed to make it together. Now 200 million supplies are piled together, which is very astonishing. Very good, very good. Alus, I'll give you the position of general manager you want. From now on, you will be the second person besides me in the Earth team. As long as you work for me loyally, look for books you will be able to enjoy more power in the future. Jia Yan laughed heartily for the first time in a long time. Ignoring the sound, Alus crawled to the ground in surprise, and he was already striding towards the pile of supplies. I have selected so many things on a small scale, and each of them is something that can attract my mutation. Now that they are put together, combined with the star essence on me and the star mithril and other things, I still don't believe it. Can't make me go any further. Thinking of this, the big mosquito moved faster. His huge body entered the building, which although looked huge, still looked smaller after the big mosquito entered. The entire body of the giant mosquito seemed to be completely buried by the endless supplies. The brainwave power gradually dissipated, and the building door slowly closed. At the same time, Jia Yan's excitement filled with indifferent voice reached Alus's mind.